Hello wonderful person, this is Anton, and today we're going to discuss some of the more unusual discoveries about our own sun. Because turns out our star, the sun, has been acting just a little bit different in just the last few years. And so in this video we're going to focus on some of the more bizarre discoveries about the sun's behavior, mostly things that scientists didn't expect, and of course discuss what this means for us right here on planet Earth. And a lot of these discoveries are essentially just the discrepancies between what scientists predicted the sun should be doing and how it should be acting during its 25th solar cycle, compared to what's actually being detected and compared to what we're observing since the sun became super active in the last 3 years. And so I guess to start, let's briefly discuss these solar cycles and what we usually expect pretty much every 11 years. And I think this graph right here kind of explains everything. Roughly every 11 years, the sun goes from being somewhat calm and I guess somewhat sleepy, the phase we refer to as the solar minimum, to a very chaotic, very fiery phase, referred to as the solar maximum. And this very active solar maximum is usually defined by the amount of sunspots we see on the surface, because they normally represent a lot of magnetic activity on the surface and very often result in very powerful storms. And so we actually even have this map going back several centuries, showing us the overall sunspot observations and showing us certain minima and certain maxima, even when it comes to decades-long periods. For example, right here during the 1600s and 1700s, there was something known as the Wonder minimum, but for some reason that's still not really clear to us. The sun seemed to have almost no sunspots on the surface, whereas since the mid-1800s, there was something known as the Modern maximum, when the sun generally became much more active and produced a lot of sunspots every 11 years. But based on these observations, and based on, I guess, this graph right here, a lot of NASA researchers and a lot of solar scientists predicted the solar cycle 25 to be relatively mild. And that's because compared to solar cycle 22, 23 was weaker, 24 was even weaker, and so 25 was expected to be really weak. But not all scientists agreed with this, and as we discussed in one of the videos in the description, there was actually a slightly different proposition based on even larger cycles, something we're going to discuss in a few minutes, that predicted the opposite. At least one study predicted cycle 25 to be super powerful. And guess what? Most solar scientists were basically incorrect, and that one study turned out to be almost spot on. The 2025 solar maximum, first of all, arrived much sooner, and second of all, was way more powerful than expected. And you can see how it different from the predicted values in this graph. And so here both NASA and NOAA, the two big space agencies, officially confirmed that we're now in the solar maximum, and the cycle seems to be one of the strongest in recent memory. As a matter of fact, based on the number of sunspots,
I did that like 20 minutes ago,
and actually exceeded initial forecasts for 30 months in a row. And even in August of 2025, the average daily sunspot count was the highest in almost 23 years, more than double what was predicted. As a matter of fact, the initial prediction by NOAA suggested that on July 2025, we should see approximately 115 sunspots, similar to cycle 24, but the real number was double, with the average number of sunspots since 2019, when the solar cycle started, being at least 33% higher compared to cycle 24 and compared to what's predicted. And this is on top of extremely strong solar flares and several coronal mass ejections, which, as you probably know already, produced a lot of beautiful aurora in the last few years. Once again, we've discussed one of the biggest such storms in one of the videos in 2024. And so here we had multiple X-class flares, multiple geomagnetic storms, and way more than predicted. And we actually currently have no idea how many more we're going to experience until the end of the cycle in 2030. And this is really the important part, because apart from surging sunspots, this also involves a lot of potentially powerful flares. Basically bright flashes of light and a lot of radiation coming from the sunspots, which very often interact with the ionosphere and can cause radio blackouts, disrupt satellite communication, and can deform the Earth's upper atmosphere, and obviously also produce quite a lot of radiation danger for astronauts and various satellites. And the most powerful flares are referred to as the X-class flares, and even this year we already had 11. With the total number of all types of flare dramatically increased from around 400 in 2020 to nearly 3,000 now. And not only are there more sunspots, some of them seem to be really massive. For example, one of them, AR3354, The sunspot you see captured right here was essentially 10 times wider than our own planet and formed in just 48 hours. And these gigantic sunspots are also very often linked to very powerful geomagnetic storms or coronal mass ejections. And it's really the powerful CMEs that very often affect us here on planet Earth. These are essentially really large discharges coming from the sun, very often caused by the snapping of the magnetic fields, when huge amounts of clouds of charged particles blast into outer space and then travel toward various planets. And though CMEs by themselves are usually not that dangerous, in some cases, especially when several happen all at once, this is when we sometimes get enormous geomagnetic storms, such as the one that shut down my home province of Quebec in 1987. And what's more, during this cycle, researchers have also identified what we usually refer to as cannibal CMEs. These are essentially multiple CMEs where one of them overtakes and then swallows the other one, eventually creating an even bigger and more powerful storm that then heads toward planet Earth. And intriguingly enough, a few months back, the Parker Solar Probe, the probe whose purpose is to investigate the sun, literally flew right through one of these, capturing a lot of data and revealing everything we feared about them. They seem to be ridiculously powerful, and if one of them heads toward planet Earth, we can essentially expect something similar to a Carrington event once again. But luckily for us, none of this happened yet. Although since the cycle is still going on, there's still a chance it might happen. But during this cycle, researchers have also seen a lot of really bizarre structures around the sun, some which we've never seen before. Now, most of these are usually referred to as prominences, but in this case, a lot of them were absolutely enormous. For example, one of the more bizarre ones was referred to as the Beast, a gigantic cloud of shape-shifting plasma, approximately 2 times the size of our own planet, that hovered over the sun for several hours. This was actually one of the biggest such events ever observed,
to say the wrong thing, like I don't like
has no
somebody.
On top of this, we've also seen several incredible formations.
Talk bad about Charlie Kirk yet? No, there for a while, dude. It was real shit. There was even people making videos like, "Hey, dumb motherfucker."
I know these have been seen before.
Don't say anything for a while.
Way too many, and they
this
seem to be
happens,
much larger.
after people get killed or some shit happens. Like, you can't talk bad about someone who just got killed in front of everybody.
Of the sun, and this
moron,
for 8 hours,
the way it is.
A massive storm. And then there was this beautiful picture of the
I don't care if you disagreed, if you didn't like it, that's fine. But like for right now, just shut the fuck up.
And all these were captured in just the last 2 years and were a strong indicator that the sun seems to have reached its maximum and is way more active than we've seen ever. Now, obviously, this is because we have so many more observatories and so many more means of capturing the sun, but this doesn't change the fact
I just can't believe how weird it's getting, dude.
Active right now. And so the
Trump shooter guy was weird enough. Lee Harvey Oswald was weird enough. These guys make Lee Harvey Oswald look like a standing, stable, upstanding fucking citizen, dude.
For a very long time.
Like a role model Episcopalian. No, that's what Lee Harvey compared to.
Might happen again really soon. Likewise, there are going to be more unusual.
Dude never shot before in his life, but like go gets his grandpa's antique World War I old action German rifle that just coincidentally has no serial numbers on it, and then makes a bullseye at 200 yards.
But it's not just about visual effects, it's also about
that's 2 football fields, dude.
For example, we expect less noctilucent clouds.
I don't know about that either, dude.
Shining clouds.
You were in the army, you saw how people shot.
But we expect a lot less of them because the increased solar radiation warms
and they're teaching you, dude. Like he never, supposedly, never any instruction, never any
this also affects the reflectivity of the planet and thus affects the weather and the climate, but exactly how, we're not sure yet. But we do expect things to warm up just a little bit because normally these clouds reflect solar radiation,
iron sights are a lot tougher, but so are scopes.
And because the Earth's upper atmosphere or atmosphere is being heated up, it's also
so you're telling me the kid
knew
about zeroing in your scope, and what distance was it zeroed in?
The ones in the low
and then so he knew to figure out the distance from him to Charlie and how much the bullet was going to drop.
This is exactly what happened with the
and then the wind, he knew to account for the wind
in 2022. But I guess the question is, so why exactly is all this happening, and what do we know or what have we learned about the sun in the last few years?
Well, man, just put the crosshairs on it and pull the trigger. That's not quite how it works, I don't thing.
But there are no real answers yet.
And then
Although we do have
each
some really
25
exciting
yards you move
propositions
that post
that we're going to
out,
discuss in
the
a couple of
more.
minutes. Now, as always, you can find all of these studies
Joe
in
Rogan
the
was
links
trying
in
to
the
act like it was
description
an
below.
easy shot
But in
that
essence,
anybody
it
could
seems
do.
to be
And I was
all the
like,
result
Joe,
of
I
bizarre
don't think you're
magnetic
being
effects
realistic.
somewhere
You're
on the solar
familiar with
surface.
firearms.
For example,
You're
in one of the
familiar
recent studies,
with people
scientists
that grow
tackled
up
the
with
magnetic
firearms.
reconnection mystery
Supposedly
that
this
has now
kid
been
has
officially confirmed by the Parker
never
Solar Probe.
fired a
And so
gun
for
before,
decades,
dude.
scientists theorized that solar
And he
flares
made a
and
200
coronal mass
yard shot
ejections
in a crowd
mostly get
under
all of their
stress.
energy from something called
So
magnetic
I'm sure he did.
reconnection. This is basically when the magnetic lines, very often formed around the solar spots, break apart and then reconnect in a slightly different arrangement. And this ends up releasing huge amounts of energy and produces these powerful bursts referred to as CMEs, coronal mass ejections. But the problem was that nobody has ever seen it physically, or at least we had no direct data pretty much until now. And so based on the Parker Solar Probe observations, which flew really close to the sun, hereby flying to the regions where these explosive processes were occurring, this confirmed this 70-year-old theory. This was a direct observation of the reconnection, helping scientists understand this process a little bit better, which will hopefully create better models in order to predict powerful storms. But there was also a discovery of something that was not expected. The question of where exactly does the sun produce its magnetic field? And this is because in previous propositions, this was assumed to be somewhere deep inside, possibly over 200,000 kilometers below the surface. But some of the new computer simulations and some of the new data from the Parker Solar Probe suggested that this seems to be not true. It seems to be very close to the surface, possibly only 20,000 to 30,000 kilometers deep, and seems to be the result of very powerful cyclical plasma flows very close to the surface, which will hopefully once again help us create better models for future predictions. Additional studies also tackle the idea behind the strange rotation of the sun, in this case because the solar rotation is actually different on the poles compared to the equator. The equator usually rotates faster, taking approximately 24 days per rotation, whereas the poles rotate every 34 days, with this new theory suggesting that the long period sound waves very deep inside the sun, the sound waves that actually cause a lot of the convection, seem to play a major role in controlling the rotation, and thus controlling what happens on the surface, including a lot of these magnetic interactions. Or just to rephrase this, a lot of the activity on the surface seems to be the result of very powerful acoustic oscillations deep inside the sun. And so all of these powerful sound waves seem to transport the heat from the poles to the equator, influencing the spin of the sun and producing all of these emissions on the surface. You can learn more about how we actually hear the sun and how these acoustic oscillations are usually detected from one of the videos in the description. But obviously the biggest mystery is, so why exactly is the sun so much more powerful than predicted?
The internet's
and why
probably
is there
telling him as
so
soon
much
as he
more
steps outside, some
because
OPs are going
apart
to
from having
fucking
more
beat the shit out of him
the
and fucking
sun's
dump his
constant
body
outflow of
out.
particles referred to as
You know
the
what I
solar
mean?
wind has also been getting much stronger since 2008. And this was once again
those
really
guys aren't
unexpected.
real, dude.
Mostly
That's
because
not
once
us.
again earlier
That's the
predictions
extreme right
suggested that
hand.
the sun
Like,
should be
nobody
headed
gives
for
a shit
less
if you're gay,
activity
dude.
and actually a prolonged
Just
phase
don't
of low
want you
activity
fucking
with very
messing with
low
their
solar
kids.
wind. And so here by measuring the solar wind in terms of speed, density,
We believe
temperature,
that with
and magnetic field
heterosexuals,
strength,
dude. We
researchers
believe
confirmed
adults and
that it's
children should
indeed
not.
getting much stronger. But much more importantly, this also suggests that
I'm sorry
measuring
that some
solar
people
activity
don't
in
believe
just
that. No, there
sunspots
are
may
genuinely
not be
people, I
entirely
think, who
correct.
don't
We may
believe
need to
that
look at other
kids
solar
should be
activity and
sexual.
combine
Well,
it to
we're
create a
not
much
going
bigger
there.
picture. And here we have at least one study and at least one hypothesis that tries to tackle and explain what's possibly happening here. Or technically this is maybe two propositions because this involves two different cycles that are slightly less known. For example, in solar physics there is something known as the Hale's law
I think I've
and
heard of shit
Hale's
like
cycle. The idea that the solar cycle is not just 11 years long, it's also 22 years long, comprising two consecutive 11-year cycles. And that's because during a single cycle the sun flips its polarity, with the south becoming north and vice versa. And so in order to return to the original position, it essentially needs two cycles.
Karen loves
but more
getting people
importantly, there's a
fired,
much
dude.
longer 100-year cycle.
Like, how long
referred
has
to
that
as
been a
CGC,
meme of Karen trying to get
Centennial
people
Glycol
fired? No,
cycle.
that's what
And
it
it just
is.
so
They
happens that
love
several
getting
studies
people.
published in
They
2024
love getting you
and
fired, dude.
2025 suggested that the
They
cycle
love calling
might
your
have just
boss. They love
restarted, possibly explaining the
oh my god,
intensity
that
of solar
painter you
activity
sent out here
and
is
the
fucking
intensity of the
smoke or
solar
whatever
wind.
the no,
Here,
dude,
if
they
this cycle
love
is
it.
ramping up,
They love
Earth would
canceling your
experience
fucking ass.
decades of heightened solar activity,
So anyways, and
potentially
that's
pulling
where
a
I got
lot of
sober
risky
with the
satellites,
Charlie Kirk
astronauts,
thing.
and
That's what
global
happened to me.
technology,
Is like,
and of course producing a lot of beautiful aurora.
there's a lot
And
of
so based on
hypocrites.
what
It
we know
was
about
a
the
moment
cycle,
where a lot of
it's
people
potentially
instantly
anywhere from
flipped.
80
No,
to
they're
100
you're
years
for
long, and
cancel
seems to be
culture
characterized
now.
by long-term fluctuations
Now you're
in solar
against
activity,
freedom of
which usually
speech.
then interacts with the 11-year cycle
Wait, it
and
was
the
like only a
22-year
year ago
Earth cycle.
Elon was doing
The
the
studies
whole
in this case
X freedom
suggesting
of.
that the quiet
So
sunspot
anyways,
cycle
that's
24,
God
which
does
ended
that,
in
I guess,
2020,
to
corresponded to
help
the
us see
CDC
them.
minimum. Basically,
Yeah, they
making
don't
this
give a
the
shit
end of
what
the
they say,
cycle,
dude. They
which
just
is
want to
why
be the popular
2020 was
kid.
so calm in
They
terms of
want to be
solar
the popular
activity.
kid.
And so
They're going
here
to
the
do,
assumption is that now the
dress,
cycle will
say,
start. And that
act,
means that cycle
whatever they
26
have
and
to
cycle
do to be the
27
popular
might be
kid.
even more
That's all they
powerful,
fucking
as
care
the
about.
sun might experience even more activity
Oh,
for decades to come.
like,
And
yeah,
the
bro.
maximum in this case is only going to be reached in approximately 40 to 50
We
years
want to be on top.
during the cycle 28, which might be the
Top's
most
like being
powerful
on
yet,
top.
with studies predicting the
What do
solar
you
activity to
want me
be
to
at
tell you?
least twice as intense as in 2025. And as always, if you want
But
to learn more,
it
check
is
out the
trippy to
study in
see
the
it. It was
description.
just
There's
blatant.
actually
It
a
was
couple
so
of them,
blatant. I was
and both
just
of them suggest
disappointed
the
by
same
some of these
thing. They
dudes because
essentially
they should
suggest
have been
that
able
the
to catch
cycle is now
themselves.
restarting, and
And it
that
was
we're
a
going to have
moment
more
God
and more
gave them an
activity for decades
opportunity
and decades to
to
come.
show that they
But for us
truly
here on
believe
Earth,
the
this
shit they
might not
said.
be
And
an
most
issue.
of them
It
failed
would
miserably.
just be an issue for all
It was
these
a
mega
perfect
constellations
opportunity
and
for
all
them to
these
come out and
massive
say, hey,
satellite swarms,
we
since this
love
is going to
Kurt, we
result
love
in
that, but you
atmospheric
guys can't
swelling
turn
and a lot of
around and do
space
the very
radiation.
things he
This is
hated.
mostly going to be dangerous for
In
astronauts
his name,
and
you
satellites.
guys,
But we still have to be a little bit
this is
cautious because
ridiculous.
in this case,
This
we
is
don't really know what's
vulgar,
going to
what
happen,
you're
and the data
doing.
is very limited, with the facts remaining poorly understood.
But
And
no,
so once we
thinking
have more data
all
in the
that they
next few
just
years,
ran with
we
it,
might get
dude.
a much clearer picture and maybe predict the solar activity for the next
And
few
then a
years
bunch of
a
us
little
just
bit
sat here
better,
like,
because our sun is still super
holy
mysterious, and
fuck.
we still don't really understand it that well. Which means that we'll come back and discuss most of this in some of the future
But yeah, they're
videos, and
slaves
we'll
to the
definitely come back and
audience.
discuss additional
They're
studies
going to
in the
say
videos
whatever.
sometimes in the next few weeks. And that means you should
They're
probably subscribe
entertainers,
if you'd
dude.
like to find out more. Until then, thank you for watching. Come back tomorrow to learn
What do you
something
want for
else.
breakfast?
Support the channel on Patreon, where you can find
You want
additional
hash
videos,
browns?
videos without any ads, and can DM me
You happy?
directly, or by joining a channel membership that grants you early access.
Are you getting
You can
lunch
also buy the
today?
Wonderful Person t-shirt in the description below. Stay wonderful. I'll see you tomorrow, and as always, bye-bye.
And then, all right, I'll make breakfast and you can get lunch. And I'll make Sydney lunch. She asked for something yesterday. I don't think so. Yeah. Yeah, thanks for telling me I sound nasally. It might be worse when I don't have my teeth in.
And like, you might just be nasally, or I'm nasally right now.
So, no, I heard myself on a video and I was like, dude, I sound like I talk like, or whatever. I sound. Randy was that Randy? I sound like Randy Travis, dude.
I guess whether you realize it or not, you may just have some junk, because I thought you sounded different in one of your videos.
Maybe so.
So.
I was like, man, I sound like Randy Travis. Sound like an old country western singer. Maybe that's because I've been in Oklahoma so long. It's just what I sound like.
Maybe like a egg and cheese sandwich.
Oh, you want a sandwich?
No meat, though.
No meat? Okay.
Yeah, no meat.
That's fine. It makes it easier.
Oh.
You want a hash brown with it or not?
No.
Just a sandwich?
Yeah, I can't eat that much in the morning.
Okay. No, we're all sick. Poor baby girl. It is, man. As soon as that temperature goes down, we all start getting sick. It's a real thing. You know, a little nagging cough. So I had it too, but yeah.
Oh yeah, but yeah, I double checked with Sis, and yeah, the prices she fell for rotors and cats.
Do me a favor, just have her send me
Daniel's vision of the four
send
beasts.
me whatever.
Daniel's
like, you know,
vision
what she
of four
thinks,
great beasts
and then I'll
emerging from
double
the sea
check. We
in
can
Daniel
buy
7
the
is one of
parts,
the most
probably,
mysterious
but at
and
least
symbolic
she's gone
passages in the
through,
book
see
of
what the
Daniel.
parts
Daniel
are.
sees four
Has
different
she got
beasts,
any
which many
estimates for
interpreters
actual
believe to be
repair?
images of the
No,
four great
I
empires
Ask
that
her
will
to just get a
arise
few
in world
quotes. Get
history.
3
The four
quotes
beasts
for
are: the
rotor and
first
pad
beast is like
repair.
a lion with
That
wings.
should be a
The
really
second
easy
beast is like a
estimate.
bear with 3 bones in its mouth.
So,
The third beast is
and
like a
then we'll
leopard
do
with
it.
4
We'll buy the
wings.
parts with the
And the
fact
fourth
that
beast is
she's
very terrible, which has
participating
no
in.
clear shape. with 10 horns.
No, I'm really proud of my daughter.
Traditional interpreters usually associate these
No,
beasts with the
she's
kingdoms
really-
that existed at the time of Daniel. The
But that's
first beast is
she's
often
everything
identified
I
as the
wanted to
Babylonian
be.
Empire,
And
which
I'm
ruled
really
at the
proud
time
of her.
of Daniel.
Okay,
The
she rushed
lion
the
with its gripping
sorority all
wings
by
symbolizes the
herself,
strength and
dude.
speed
So,
of Babylon, which was known
No,
as
she's
a large
literally
and
one
powerful
step.
empire at the
She's the
time.
American
The
dream.
second beast,
That's
a
what
bear
makes me
with
so
3
fucking
bones in
nervous,
its
dude.
mouth,
But
was
she's
thought to
literally one
represent
step
the
up from her
Medo-Persian Empire that
parents.
later
Okay.
overthrew Babylon.
No,
The
poor
third
girl
beast,
just
a leopard with
walking
4
around
wings,
with
was
her,
seen
like,
as the Greek
no,
Empire
she's
under
lucky
Alexander the
walking
Great, which
around.
expanded
Oh, does
its
she?
territory very quickly.
I'm telling you, I'm going to do
The
the same
fourth
thing to
beast, the
Bubs.
most
You should have to
monstrous,
do
is
a
considered
semester
to be
without a
a
car,
Roman
just so you get
empire
to
of
know your
great power and
school.
cruelty, and the 4 horns
Otherwise, you
symbolize the
don't really know
division
the
of the
campus,
empire
dude,
after the fall of
unless
its
you
central
walk
power.
it.
However, this interpretation is not fully accepted by all
She had
interpreters.
her interview
Some
with
argue
that
that this
bus
vision not
thing,
only depicts the
Yeah.
kingdoms that
and he
existed
said
at that
it
time, but
went
also
really
reflects
well.
the world
She just
powers
doesn't
to
know
come
if
in
it's
symbolic
really
form, especially in
doable
eschatological
That's what I
times.
worry
this
This
about.
understanding is
semester without a
enriched by
car.
the further vision
Because
of the
it's a
Son of
split
Man
shift.
coming
You have
with
to be there at like
clouds to judge
5:30
the
in the
world.
morning.
Did you
Some
tell her we're
interpreters
bringing
view
her a
this
car?
as a
Thanksgiving?
prophecy that leads to the
No,
coming of
I didn't
Jesus
tell her
Christ
anything.
as the King who
But,
overcomes the kingdoms
even
of the
then,
world.
Thanksgiving's still like 2 months
Time
away.
jump in the
And it's like
ascension
you have to
story.
go
The story of
5:30
Jesus'
to
ascension
We could
into
take her the
heaven after
car.
his
to
resurrection,
9:30,
recorded in
and then
Acts
she was
chapter
like,
1,
it's like
verse 9 to
1
11,
to
is one of the most
4.
mysterious and
It's the
confusing events in
morning and
Christianity.
afternoon bus.
I really
After
wanted
giving a
her to
final
wait.
message
No,
to his
no, it
disciples and
does.
promising the coming of the
Your
Holy
freshman
Spirit,
year, you should
Jesus
not
is
have a
taken up
car.
into heaven, witnessed by
And
the
a lot of them
apostles.
do, and that's how
This
they get in
event has
trouble.
been the center of
Because they have
attention of many
cars, and they
interpreters,
start
as
driving
there
on
is no
campus.
detailed explanation of what
So,
happened to Jesus' body after the ascension,
Yeah,
nor
we
how
can
this
take her
event
to
should
car.
be
Well, what
understood
was
in
I
the
going to say?
context
I
of the
forgot.
Christian faith. One
What?
aspect that
Bugs
raises
yesterday was like,
questions
oh, you
is
got to
whether
tell mom
Jesus was
about
actually
the
physically taken
boo-boo.
up with the same body
And then
that he wore during his life, or
he was
whether
sitting
this was
here
rather a
in front of the sink,
transition
and I was sitting
to
here
a
at the
spiritual
table.
dimension
And
that
then Isabel starts
transcends
going,
human
look,
understanding.
look.
Most traditional Christian interpreters regard the ascension as a physical event, signifying that Jesus returned to his
Okay,
Father in
hopefully she's
heaven
not
after
awake.
completing his
Anyways,
mission on earth. However, some modern views see this event
and
as
then he was
symbolic,
looking at her like,
depicting the
nah,
transition
I was
from
like, I
Jesus
know,
coming in
dude, you gotta
physical
be
form to his
careful. She's
infinite spiritual
4.
presence.
She already,
There's
they
also
repeat
speculation
things,
regarding the
dude.
time and space
So he was
dimensions
like,
involved in
but
Jesus'
that's like, then I
ascension.
told him the story about your
Some
mom.
theories suggest that
It's
this
like, you
event may represent a change in
bastards.
the dimensions of the universe, where Jesus is no longer
I was so
confined
worried
to
about
time
that
and
fucking
space, but
package.
is
You guys have
present
had
in
it
a
for like 2
higher
days.
reality. This
no,
understanding
because
implies that the
What?
ascension may be
I was
more
like,
than
I
just a
oh,
visible
holy
physical
I was
shit.
like,
event, but
Buzz, we
also
forgot
implies a
to tell
shift
your
in the
mom.
way
She was
God
freaking
interacts
out.
with
I was trying
humanity.
to tell him
This
what you had to go
interpretation of the
through to get
ascension is
it.
also enriched by
Oh, but
eschatological
anyways,
thinking,
are you going to
where
make her
this
wait till
event is
Christmas?
considered a
Yeah.
sign of Jesus' second coming, where he
There's
will
not going to be a
return in
school
glory to
then.
judge the world.
No, the
In this
fat'll
context,
be.
Jesus' ascension can be seen
You
as a
should have just given it to
prefiguration
her
or
this
picture
morning
of his coming,
to
even
make
though the
up for what
physicality
happened.
of this
No, that was
event cannot
fucked
be
up what
fully
happened.
understood.
And they're still pretty cool right now.
Measurement of the temple.
Well, in 2 months,
In the
it
book of
might be
Revelation,
a
the
bunch of them
passage
are
that
going to get
records
ones
God's
for
command to
Christmas.
John to measure God's temple in Jerusalem, Revelation chapter 11,
And you
verse
can
1
say
to 2,
mommy and
has
daddy,
generated much debate and
something.
interpretation, both
And
in
then threaten her. She
theological and
better be fucking good.
eschatological
We'll take it away.
contexts.
Yeah.
Or
In this
whatever.
event, John is given a
But yeah, it's
measuring
just
rod and
Christmas is a
instructed to
long
measure
way
the
away.
temple
And
and
it's
the
getting
altar,
colder
as well as those who worship in it, but not
each
the
day.
outer
Yeah,
court
whatever.
or the outer courtyard of the temple,
No,
because the
because
courtyard
I
is
know
given
it's a
to the
good Christmas
Gentiles
present. No,
and will
it's a
be
good
trampled by
present.
them for
But yeah,
42
that's like,
months. This
it's a long
measurement
ways
is
away,
particularly
dude.
interesting because
And
it
this is a
contains a
time,
complex symbolic
what do you call it,
dimension.
time
Some
sensitive
interpreters
thing.
believe that this
These things are
measurement of the
time
temple
sensitive.
symbolizes the protection and
Like, for
separation
fuck's sake, by
of God's
Christmas, it'll
people
be
from the
something else, and
unbelieving
then she'll be
nations
fucking,
of the world. In
she'll
other
look
words,
bad.
this measurement is not just
It'll
a
go
matter
from
of the
that to
physical
the poor
dimensions of
kids
the
now
temple,
have that.
but also a symbol
You
of the
know what I'm
separation of
saying,
God's
dude?
people for a special purpose,
Yeah,
as
whatever.
well
You
as an
poor
indication
kids
that
aren't gonna
despite
go.
the world's persecution
Yeah.
and hardships,
I
God
was
still looks
impressed.
after
Like,
his
they're
people.
doing that shit on
In
purpose.
this view,
Nintendo
this
and
measurement can
Zelda, they
also
learned
be
that shit
interpreted
long
as
time ago.
God's act of setting the
Nintendo couldn't
boundaries
be
of his
honest
rule
about
in the
it
world
because
while
when you when I were
distinguishing
kids,
the
I guess that
sacred
shit
from the
was illegal
profane.
as fuck. They
In
could not,
addition, there is also a view that
suppliers could
links the
not
measurement of the
purposely, like,
temple to
restrict
the coming
demand or
of the
something.
kingdom of
Because I remember
God. This
Nintendo had to
interpretation is
deny
often
that
viewed in the
Zelda thing. When
context of
everyone know they
eschatology,
did that shit on
which is an
purpose. At
understanding of the events
Christmas,
that will
where they
occur
were so
towards the
rare,
end
they
of
did that shit
time.
on purpose.
In this case, the measurement of the
So,
temple could be interpreted as
but
symbolic of
nowadays I
God's
think they can
preparation to
blatantly
establish his eternal kingdom on earth, with the temple being the central place of true worship.
We only got
However,
100.
many also interpret the
That's all we
measurements to be
got.
symbolic,
We only made
symbolizing the
100.
coming of God's kingdom that will bring
So you
salvation
gotta
to his
refresh
people.
the website.
It is important to note that the revelation of
No,
these
because that's
measurements
when you
took
were doing
place in
that.
the
I was
backdrop
laughing.
of apocalyptic
I've
visions
already
full
like
of
watched
symbolism,
and
many
heard
of
of
which
people doing
depict
that
the
shit
battle
on the
between the
internet.
forces of
Oh,
good
like
and
when the
evil,
consoles first
as
come
well
out,
as God's
you got to
judgment
sit
on
on
the
fucking the
world.
Walmart
Therefore,
webpage,
although we may try to seek a
and then you're
literal
trying
or
to
historical
refresh, and you're trying to
interpretation,
get one,
there
and
is a
then half the
mysterious
time
dimension
before you can
involving
get it in your
time and
cart,
space
like it'll
in
say
these
they're
temple
there,
measurements.
and by the time you
As
get to
part of
your
a larger
checkout, your
prophecy, it
shopping cart
invites
page,
much
it's gone. They're
speculation
all gone.
regarding what
It'll
will
say,
happen in the
sorry,
future
error.
and how the faithful can prepare for the coming of God's true kingdom.
So I was laughing when you were telling me.
The mystery of the seal,
I was like,
opening event in Revelation.
And
The
then
opening
like
of
the
the seven
webpage did
seals in
something funny.
Revelation
I'm like,
performed by the
no,
Lamb, Jesus
no,
Christ, is one of the
don't
most
do it.
dramatic and
Not right
mysterious
now.
parts of the
Not right now.
apocalyptic
Don't
narrative
fuck
of
up. Not right
Revelation.
now.
When the
like they're
seals are opened,
Pokemon in
great
that.
events occur
Like
that
just
shake the earth
Yeah.
and the
on
heavens.
purpose.
Each seal marks
But
God's
yeah.
Like the
judgment on
designer
the world and
thing.
becomes
Just
a
whoever
symbol
that
of various
is.
disasters to come,
What's the,
including war,
he figured
famine,
out the
death, and
designer thing.
injustice.
Maybe
However,
we
the
should
meaning
have
and
it sitting
relevance
there
of these seals remain
when she
mysterious, with
comes to
many
breakfast.
different
Well, that's what I was
interpretations
saying.
as to who
Yeah.
One
opens
of
the
the table
seals,
steps.
how these events will
But
manifest, and
yeah,
what they
but
mean
no,
for
but just this,
mankind.
like, so no,
In Revelation
I
6,
could've
the
went back
first
to
seal
the
is opened and a
table.
rider on
I
a
was
white
like,
horse
well,
appears, which is believed to
He's
symbolize
getting a
conquest
really
or
good
the coming of
experience, whether
dominating power. This
it
rider holds a
sucks to be
bow and is
that
said to be a
dude to make
bearer of
somebody
victory.
suffer.
Some interpreters
But at the
believe
same
that this
time, like,
symbolizes the
no,
coming
dude,
of the
that's they
Messiah,
call it.
who will bring
You don't
victory
know
over
your
the evil
campus.
world
You
powers.
don't have to use
However,
the
there are also
buses.
those who take it as a
So you went to
representation
college and
of
you
the
never had
worldly
to use the
forces
bus
that
system.
dominate
You
humanity
never had
in
to
a more
walk
negative
across
sense.
campus.
The second seal to be
Like
opened reveals a
that's,
red
to me,
horseman
that's
bringing
just that
war,
image. And I
followed by
could
a
be
black horseman
nostalgic.
symbolizing
I may
famine,
be
and a
making my
pale
daughter
horseman
suffer
depicting
from my
death.
nostalgia.
Each of these riders
But
brings a
no, I
specific
was really
judgment that
jealous of those
strikes the
kids because
world
I
in
was
the form of an
29 years old.
enormous disaster.
And yeah,
This
those kids
process
who were
depicts the
walking
human
around,
suffering
and
that
yeah, they were
occurs as a
stuck in the,
result of
they were
acts of
stuck on
sin
campus. You'd
and
see them at
rejection
night,
of
all
God.
hanging
In
out
this
at the
context,
student
these
union,
seals are more
or
than just
going
physical
bowling, because
events
yeah,
that
they were
occur in the
stuck on
world,
campus,
but also
dude.
depict the spiritual
And
consequences
it
of
made them
mankind's
different. They were
rejection
just
of
more
God's
individuals.
righteousness and justice.
And
Confusion
yeah, they
arises
didn't
due
have
to the
cars. They had
symbolic
bicycles.
nature of this
There was
vision.
people in my
Some
fraternity that
interpreters
didn't. Only a
consider
few
the
of them had
seals to
cars.
represent historical
No,
events
but
that
yeah,
have already happened or are
but yeah,
happening, while others argue that they are
like, I don't
prophecies
know
of
if
the
I can,
distant future, referring to the
if I can
Lord's
do that
coming in the
particular
last
And the only
days.
reason I'm
Another
thinking
interpretation is
now
that
is
these
because she's
seals
done
may
so
serve as a
well.
reminder
That's
to
when I was
Christians
driving
that
her
the world is
yesterday. I was
full of
like, dude,
challenges
she's
and
really
suffering,
done
yet
well.
God remains
She's
sovereign
not
over
just
all
surviving,
events.
she's
In
thriving.
addition, the passage
She'll
depicting the
probably
souls
get her
of
car
those
back
slain
to
for the
her.
word of
She's more
God
than
crying out for
proven
justice
what
also
we
gives a
asked.
deep emotional and spiritual
yeah.
dimension to God's judgment.
She
Those
probably
who suffer for
finished
their
the
faith
card.
await the
Brakes on,
coming
get
moment
across
of
the
vengeance, signifying that suffering in this world will not be in vain, and God will
It's
ultimately
nice
deliver
having
his
you here,
justice.
Kate.
The opening of these seals is
Yeah,
also
we should
closely
probably get her.
related to the
She's
major
just doing
themes
really well. She
in
deserves
revelation
it.
of God's judgment and the establishment of the truth. Although the events described are harsh and filled with suffering, the ultimate goal is God's victory over all evil and the renewal of a world filled with justice. The opening of these seals therefore contains a message of hope for believers, even though they must endure hardship and suffering before the time of the Lord's second coming. Healing by the touch of Elijah's bones. The story of the healing of a dead man after his body touched the bones of the prophet Elijah in 2 Kings chapter 13 verse 21 is one of the most mysterious and unique miracles in the Bible. In this story, a dead man was thrown into Elijah's tomb when the Moabite army attacked, and when his body touched Elijah's bones, he rose back to life. This miracle is only recounted in a few short verses with no further explanation as to how or why it happened, leaving many questions and speculations as to the meaning and significance of the event. This healing took place in a turbulent context where Elijah and Elisha had performed many great miracles before. However, this event took place after the death of Elisha, who was also famous for performing many miracles. Elisha's bones, still in the tomb, became a source of divine power that could raise the dead. This shows that God's power is not limited to the life of a prophet, but even after death, God can use objects or relics, such as the bones of a prophet's body, to perform miracles. One of the mysterious aspects of this miracle is the power found in Elijah's bones. In Jewish tradition, relics of the bodies of saints or prophets are often thought to have healing or protective powers, but in the context of the Bible, this is a fairly rare phenomenon and is not explained in detail. Why Elijah's dead bones would have such incredible power to bring the dead back to life is a question that remains mysterious. Some interpreters argue that this shows that God's power is not tied to the prophet's physical body itself, but to the presence of divine power working behind it. On the other hand, there are those who interpret this miracle as a symbol of the greater life that comes from God, who is able to give life even from something that seems dead or useless. Elijah's lifeless bones became a medium used by God to demonstrate his power over death, a message that death is not the end and that God has the power to defeat death. In addition, this event also reminds us of the importance of the presence of God's prophets, who are channels of divine power. Although Elijah was dead, the testimony of his life continued through the miracles that occurred after his death. This also contains a message of how God's legacy of faith and power can endure beyond physical death and continue to function in the lives of believers. Noah's life before the flood. Noah, one of the main characters in the Bible, is known as the savior of mankind in the story of the flood that destroyed the world in ancient times. However, very little information is available about Noah's life before this great event. The Bible only gives a small glimpse into Noah's life before he was commanded by God to build the ark and save himself and his family from the catastrophic flood. This has led to much speculation about who Noah really was and what his role was in the context of human history. In Genesis chapter 6, we are told that at that time the wickedness of man was great in the earth, and every imagination of the thoughts of his heart was only evil continually. Genesis chapter 6, verse 5. The condition of the world at that time was highly polluted with sin and evil, which caused God to regret having created mankind. However, in the midst of this corruption, Noah was found by God to be righteous and blameless among his contemporaries. Genesis chapter 6, verse 9. Noah's righteousness became one of the elements that set him apart, but no further explanation is given as to how Noah lived and acted before the command to build the ark was given to him. One of the most mysterious things about Noah is the relationship between him and the society around him. We are not told in detail whether Noah was a leader, a well-known prophet, or a more secluded individual. What is clear is that he was the only person chosen by God to save humanity and other living creatures from impending destruction. This raises the question as to why God chose Noah, whether for his personal righteousness or for a deeper reason that is not explained in the text. In the context of Jewish and Christian beliefs, Noah is often seen as a symbol of unwavering obedience and faith in God. While there are no further details about his lifetime before the flood, Noah's act of building the ark with unwavering faith demonstrates his submission and loyalty to God. Even though he may have been viewed as a freak or madman by the society of his day, the raising of the ark, which required tremendous effort, symbolizes perseverance in the face of uncertainty and trials. Another mysterious aspect is the condition of society at that time. Did they know about their sin and wickedness? Did they respond to Noah's warning, which may have been a call to repentance? Or did they continue to live in indifference until the flood came? The Bible does not give clear details regarding the people's reaction to Noah or whether they were ever warned of God's
Or like
punishment.
if she has them saved on something.
The angel who
Like a
destroyed the
web page or
Assyrian
like a
army.
cart
The
or
story
shopping
of the
cart or
angel
something.
who destroyed the
So I can
Assyrian
just
army
look,
in
see what
2
she found.
Kings. Chapter 19, verse 35 is one of the most mysterious and interesting miracles in the Bible. It happened when King Hezekiah of Judah prayed to God to save Jerusalem from the attack of the Assyrian army, led by King Sennacherib. The Assyrian army, which was one of the greatest powers at that time, had surrounded Jerusalem and was close to victory. However, in an extraordinary way, God answered Hezekiah's prayer by sending his angel to destroy the Assyrian army, leaving 185,000 soldiers dead overnight. Not only did this event demonstrate God's power, but it also left us with many questions about how and why this happened. First, we need to understand the historical and theological context of this event. Sennacherib, the king of Assyria, was famous for his ruthlessness and his successful military campaigns that conquered many areas in the ancient Near East, including Israel. When Sennacherib laid siege to Jerusalem, he sent Hezekiah a letter challenging and insulting the God of Israel with the aim of conquering the city. King Hezekiah, greatly afraid, immediately took his problem to God through prayer, begging God to save Jerusalem from destruction. This prayer was answered in a remarkable way. God sent an angel to kill the Assyrian army. What is a great mystery is the source of this angel's power and workings. The book does not give details on how this angel was able to kill so many soldiers in such a short time. Was this done by physical force, or did the angel utilize other means, such as disease or natural disasters, that destroyed the Assyrian army? Many interpreters argue that this is an example of divine intervention that is not bound by natural laws, showing that God can use his angels as tools to execute his judgment and power in the world. In the biblical tradition, angels often serve as God's messengers to carry out his will, both in bringing messages and in punishing or protecting his people. One interesting point is why God chose to send angels as instruments of destruction to the Assyrian army. Given that in major battles it is usual to involve human strength and weapons, this was a very different event, as it showed that God could defeat his enemies in a far more extraordinary way than human forces could. In this sense, the angel becomes a symbol of God's absolute power, which is not dependent on human military might or strategy, but rather on his infinite will. In addition, the story also has a profound moral and theological dimension. Sennacherib's insult to God through his letter, which demeans the God of Israel and challenges his power, invites a very serious punishment. It teaches that anyone who defies God's power or disregards his holiness will face great consequences, even if they appear strong and invincible in the eyes of men. God shows that although his people are small and weak, they have the protection of divine power that is far greater than earthly power. The resurrection of the dead. The resurrection of the dead by Jesus and the apostles are mysterious events in the Bible that demonstrate God's power over death and life. One of the most prominent moments occurred after Jesus' death on the cross, when some of the dead rose and appeared in Jerusalem. Matthew chapter 27, verses 52 to 53. This resurrection took place immediately after Jesus laid down his life, which makes the event highly significant in the context of mankind's redemption. These resurrected people are not further described, leaving many questions regarding their identity and the reason for their resurrection. Most interpreters argue that this event signified that Jesus' death signaled victory over death, and their resurrection was a manifestation of God's death-defying power. In addition, the resurrection of the dead by the apostles is also recorded in Acts. For example, in Acts chapter 9, verses 36 to 42, the Apostle Peter raised Tabitha, Dorcas, from the dead. This event shows that the power of Jesus given to his apostles continued after his resurrection. This resurrection served the purpose of strengthening the believer's faith and showed that Jesus' power over life and death was continued through the work of the apostles. Although this miracle of resurrection reveals the infinite power of God, its deep meaning is more about the hope of eternal life and victory over death promised in the Christian faith. The life and identity of Satan, the existence and role of Satan in the book of Job, is one of the most mysterious and confusing aspects of the Bible. In Job chapter 1, verses 6 to 12, Satan appears before God along with his angels and is granted access to test Job, a man whom God calls blameless and upright, who fears God and abstains from evil. Job chapter 1, verse 1. Why Satan, who is known to be an enemy of God and his people, could be in the presence of God and be allowed to test an obedient person is a big question in Christian and Jewish theology. The book of Job does not provide a detailed explanation of Satan's origin or how he gained access to God's presence. In ancient Jewish tradition, Satan was often regarded as a testing angel or an angel in charge of testing the faith of mankind rather than a direct enemy of God. This is seen in Job, where Satan serves as a tool to test Job's obedience through his suffering. In this context, Satan is not a symbol of evil in direct competition with God, but rather a part of the divine government that carries out certain tasks in God's plan. However, in the understanding of Christian theology, Satan is more often viewed as a fallen angel who opposes God and seeks to tempt mankind away from him. The not fully revealed identity and role of Satan in Job gives rise to various interpretations. Some see Satan as a symbol of evil that tests the resilience
you over
of
here a
human
little bit,
faith, while
Mr.
others
Computer.
see him as a representation of an
Thank you,
evil
sir.
force that seeks to destroy God's
Boom, boom,
creation.
boom, looking
This
good.
creates tension in understanding Satan's role in the context of divine will and his role
Cereal.
in testing mankind's faith.
Oh,
Satan's
and
presence
toaster girl.
before God in the book of Job also raises larger questions about the competition between good and evil and how these two forces operate within God's larger plan. Satan's role as man's tester and tempter, who's given permission to test Job, shows that even in suffering, God remains powerful and has a greater purpose in the lives of his people. Satan, in this context, acts as part of the sanctifying process of faith, though ultimately his purpose is to tempt and destroy. Satan's identity in the book of Job remains a deep mystery, as the Bible does not provide an explicit answer as to how or why Satan could function in God's plan. However, through the story of Job, we can see how suffering and tests of faith are used to prove the constancy of one's faith, as well as to show that God, despite allowing trials to come, remains powerful over all things, including Satan.
That's powdered.
The resurrection and life of Enoch. The life of Enoch in the Bible holds many mysteries, especially regarding the events that ended his life. In Genesis chapter 5, verses 21 to 24, we are told that Enoch lived for 365 years, and Enoch walked with God, and he was no more, for God had taken him. Unlike other characters who died and were buried, Enoch did not experience physical death. He was taken up by God, which later became one of the great mysteries in the biblical text. Enoch is one of the few people in the Bible who did not die, and this story has led to various theological interpretations and speculations. One view is that Enoch was taken up to heaven, as mentioned in Jewish and Christian traditions. Some apocryphal texts, such as the Book of Enoch, develop the story further, considering Enoch to be an important figure who served as a prophet and spiritual leader. However, since the Book of Enoch was not included in the biblical canon, this view is not universally accepted in the Christian tradition. In addition, Enoch's life of walking with God symbolizes a very close relationship between the individual and God. This phrase suggests that Enoch lived a life of obedience and intimacy with God, a life so extraordinary that God chose him to avoid death and brought him directly into his presence. The biggest mystery in Enoch's story is why he was chosen to be raptured while all other humans had to experience death. The Bible does not give a clear reason, but some interpreters argue that Enoch may have been an example of a man who fully submitted to God's will and lived with such strong faith that God gave him a unique blessing. On the other hand, this event also signifies that God has the power to change people's destinies and grant eternal life to those who live faithfully. Enoch symbolizes the hope of eternal life and victory over death. In this context, his life reminds the faithful that it is possible to experience God's presence directly, not only after death, but even in this life, through a close relationship with Him. Although many aspects of Enoch's life remain mysterious, his story provides a deep message of obedience and the promise of eternal life in God.
Elon Musk's father is allegedly... Today we're going to examine those allegations, which, let me tell you, are deeply, deeply disturbing and very troubling. And they show a pattern of corruption, and they also show that people for years allowed Elon Musk, Elon's father, to get away with his crimes against children, probably because he was a very rich, very wealthy, very powerful businessman. Today's video is going to be a little bit different. This is all coming from reporting that was just released by the New York Times earlier today and late last night. This is an extremely thorough story, and for today's video, I'm just going to read you the text exactly as it was printed in this New York Times article. All credit to them for bringing this stuff up and actually doing the investigative reporting and finding these allegations. And as we get into this whole thing, we're going to stop and talk about some stuff. But essentially, as you can see right here at the top of the article, the headline reads, Elon Musk's father accused of child. Elon Musk has been accused of sexually 5 of his children and stepchildren since 1993.
I think we all have a little bug.
Found family members have appealed to Elon Musk for help.
Yeah,
so
whatever bug
credit
you
to the
brought
New
home
York
from
Times
school, I think
for
so.
investigating this and writing this article and releasing this information. But let's just get into it. The article begins. Elon Musk has not been shy about putting much of his life on public display. The tech billionaire posts daily on his social network X, has cooperated with 2 biographies, and often speaks on podcasts and at conferences. But there is one part of his life that he has not revealed much about: his longtime estrangement from his father, Errol Musk, who has become increasingly outspoken about his family and business ventures tied to the Musk name. A New York Times investigation found that a significant factor in Elon Musk's rupture with his father stems from accusations against Errol Musk of child, meaning Elon Musk's dad is. The allegations have repeatedly spilled over into Elon Musk's life as relatives have contacted him for help, and he has sometimes taken action to intercede, according to personal letters, emails, and interviews with family members. The family's troubles have entangled Elon Musk in a painful 3-decade, multi-generational saga that continues to trail him. The fallout has kept the 54-year-old mogul tethered to South Africa, where he was born and where Errol Musk lives, even as he has built a business empire in the United States and briefly ascended to political power as a close advisor to President Trump. The allegations against Errol Musk involve 5 of his children and stepchildren, whom he was accused of abusing in South Africa and California, according to police and court records, personal correspondence, social workers, and interviews with family members. The earliest accusation was in 1993, when Errol Musk's stepdaughter, then 4 years old, told relatives he had touched her at the family house. A decade later, the stepdaughter said she caught him sniffing her dirty underwear. Some family members have also accused Errol Musk of abusing 2 of his daughters and a stepson. And as recently as 2023, family members and a social worker attempted to intervene after his then 5-year-old son said his father had groped his buttocks. 3 separate police investigations were opened, according to police and court records, as well as family members. 2 of those inquiries ended.
Put them on the shelf.
Unclear
Oh,
what
look
happened
at
in the
that.
3rd. So clearly
It's in a
right here,
bag.
we're seeing already a pattern of corruption. This is not in the New York Times article, but as we see with all these cases of whether they're powerful people, whether they're politicians, whether they're just people with a lot of money. I've covered these stories for a long time here on this channel. I've talked about them for years on my TikTok and all my social media. You see the same pattern of corruption. You see someone who's got some sort of influence, who's got power, who's got sway, who's got money, and when these accusations are made against them, most of the time, they just don't seem to stick. Something happens. Maybe a victim decides they
they're not even-
testify anymore.
they're
Maybe there's
stamped
some
on
sort of
the
investigation
front.
oversight. Maybe there's a payoff
No,
and they
she
just
is
drop
pretty.
the investigation.
Oh, and the
There are
eyes
a
are
lot of
completely
ways that they
different. Yeah.
smooth this over.
Look at the
If you don't
comparison.
think that there's a pattern here,
No, even
of
these
them
eyes,
not
they're
investigating
like
Errol
actually
Musk,
the eyes
I don't know
themselves.
what to tell you. You have 3
And
different investigations for
Are more pronounced.
and not one of them led to an arrest or a
And then,
prosecution.
it's-
Even saying
Yeah.
he was
So it
already
has
investigated for this a few years ago. He's
So
already
Yeah,
been
little bit of loose
investigated for this
strings you're gonna have
twice.
to trim.
Clearly, he must be innocent then.
That's fine.
There's no
Maybe
way he
not.
could have done
Got
this.
a
It's
while.
not like he's already been accused
Got a
and
little boo-boo, huh?
investigated for doing
Mommy
this
and
2
Daddy's
times
gifts
before
'cause we
this.
felt
Well,
bad about what
Errol
happened in
Musk,
San
who
Diego.
is 79 years old,
Mommy went
has
through a
never
lot
been
of that.
convicted
That's
of a
happiness.
single crime.
Yes.
And if you're watching this out there,
Mom went through
that
a
should
lot.
piss you
So
off.
that's
That
what
should
she
really,
said.
really make you
It
upset.
is.
You have credible
I
information.
think I like
He's
both.
sniffing little girls' panties. That he's
It is
not only his own blood
not a
children,
matter
but
of
his
just ordering
stepchildren,
it and
full on.
putting it in your
Yeah,
He's
it was
never been
tough.
convicted
Mom
of a
was
single
trying to
crime.
make up.
Those abuse
For what
allegations
happened in
have
San
caused
Diego.
strife within the
Yes.
Musk family, with some relatives
Yeah, you
turning
better
to
give your
Elon
mom a
Musk,
kiss and a hug.
who is Errol Musk's eldest
Give
child,
it. She
for
works
help.
hard on that.
Around 2010, one relative wrote Elon Musk a 5-page letter about some of the
It better bring
accusations and
happiness.
implored
It
him
better
to
be.
intervene. We really need your
Better
advice,
be
help,
happy.
and
Did you have
guidance in
Jell-O
these matters
yesterday, baby?
because we daily see these children suffer.
Pudding.
The relative wrote in
You
the
did
letter,
have pudding
which
yesterday?
was viewed by
You
the
didn't.
Times. It was unclear if
Right.
Elon Musk read the
Pudding.
letter, but an assistant
Right, yeah.
for him messaged
So-
a family member after relatives
That was
wrote to
it.
him about the
That's
abuse
a-
allegations.
We felt
The billionaire has
bad
also
about what
provided
happened at San
financial
Diego
support for his
from
step
not
family
letting
and
you get one
siblings
at the
from his father's
Comic-Con
3rd
and then
marriage.
hang around
He
and
once
get
tried to
ripped
keep those
off.
family members in
No, that
California
was
where they would
hard.
be far from
Life
Errol Musk.
lesson.
He was
Yeah,
not
that
involved
was
in the
hard.
police investigations
That was a
in
little-
South
I'm not
Africa.
laughing at you.
Errol Musk, who has
The
at least 9
checkout,
children
you
and
have to sign
stepchildren
that.
and has
Oh
been
no,
married
we
to
bought
3
these
women,
straight from
maintains a
Popeye.
powerful
It's a
grip
life
over
lesson,
much of the
baby.
family. The
They
former
were going
stepdaughter, whom he was
us.
accused of
Right,
touching
they
when she
was
was
lying
4,
right to a
said she later
kid's
had a
face.
child with
Yes.
him when
Yeah,
she was in
to
her
get your
20s.
money,
She
and
has
we
To
were
get your
struggled with
money.
drug use,
I think
while
we
her
were
mother,
even at
who
the
married
checkout
Errol
saying
Musk
it's the
twice,
last of her
his
birthday
grandmother,
money.
had
Yep, and
mental
they
health
didn't give a
issues.
shit. He
Errol
took the
Musk
last
has,
of your
quote,
birthday
left
money.
a massive
Mm-hmm.
wound in our
And
family,
he did
end
not
quote.
care.
Oh
Elmy
my gosh,
Smith,
the eyes
whose
are
sister
literally.
was his third wife,
Mm-hmm.
said in her
Yeah.
first on-the-record
Huh.
interview
Take
about
him
the
away from the
allegations, she said that she
table.
has emailed
I'm looking
Elon
away.
Musk about some of
I'm
the
gonna
You got you a
allegations, and
Jello? Do you
sometimes
take
heard from
anything
his
at all?
sister. In response to questions from the
Is there
Times,
anything
maybe
Errol
some
besides
Musk
chips.
said
I need one.
the reports are false
bags
and
and
Mm-hmm.
nonsense in
chips?
the
Yeah.
extreme.
Oh
He
yeah,
said that
so
the
Got
And
you
then,
accusations
ground
were
right through.
concocted by family
hey,
members
if
who were
you
putting the children up to say false
are
things,
taking him
and
to
that they were trying
school,
to get money from
I
Elon
was thinking
Musk.
about
In
that.
one
What
email
is
to the
you
all the
Times,
other
Errol
them
Musk
yeah.
also claimed to be aware of only one abuse
on your
allegation, but in the
backpack?
same
In your
message
backpack?
offered
yeah, either
explanations for the
in your
circumstances
backpack,
around 2 others.
but
He
like
added
baby
that he has a
girl
very good
You can't
relationship
keep
with
it
Elon
clipped
Musk,
to it,
and they
right?
are
well,
very
that's
close.
how Lula
Elon Musk
lost
and his
her
Because
personal
because
you
lawyer
can't keep
did
your
not
backpack
respond to
all the time.
requests
yeah,
for
And you can't
comment.
carry it
In
around all the time.
2017,
and
the
just it's
billionaire
a lot
teared
of
up when
kids
he
and
told Rolling
jostling,
Stone
and
magazine
no,
that his
but it
father
fell
had
off
done
her backpack.
almost every
Oh,
evil
That's
thing you
how
could
Lula
possibly
lost it,
think
is
of.
it
In a
fell off her backpack,
2023
and she didn't
authorized
realize
biography
until it was
written
too
by
late,
Walter
and then
Isaacson,
another kid picked it
Elon
up.
Musk said he does not
So,
communicate with
you
I
Elon
know,
Musk.
understand. I
Now,
know you want
Errol
to take it
Musk
to
has
school,
7 children with
but
4
you
different
better
women,
be
3
careful. I'm
of
not
whom
going to
he
say
was
no,
married
but you better
to,
be careful,
and one of
dude.
yeah,
whom is his
it's just,
stepdaughter
yeah,
from his 3rd marriage.
like
The
it can't,
Times
you don't want
reviewed,
it
quote,
out
police
in your
documents
locker,
from
like it
jurisdictions
needs to
in
be in
California
your
and South
backpack.
Africa,
Like,
as well
you
as
can
more than
clip it
50
on your
emails,
backpack,
text
but
messages,
like when you
personal
put your
notes, and
backpack
letters
up, you
which
probably need to
detailed
take it
certain
and put it
accusations
inside of
more
it
than
and then
others.
zip
The
your
police
backpack
and courts in
You
South
know,
Africa
we can
and
show
Los
you how to
Angeles
do that,
declined
yeah.
to release some
But like,
records,
yeah,
citing
you
children's
need
privacy.
to
Other
watch
records could
your
not be
priorities.
obtained. And of
I've
course,
already
you see
lived
this
through
all the
this with
time
the
with
big
cases like this as well.
yeah.
Cases
School.
that I've worked
did you
on,
with
that I've
your
tried to
boo-boo
FOIA,
crap?
with FOIA requests
No,
and
Early
what?
20,
Information
no,
Act
I
We
requests,
called it a
and
25.
just trying to
escape
track
route.
down
Like
records
it
from
was.
cases that involve
But then I
crimes
knew
against
enough about
children, and also
Labubu's to
cases
be like,
that
Someone
never
well,
was brokenhearted.
like,
really
no, and it is
resolved.
kind of
A lot
serious.
of
Like, you
times they will
can't just
do
pick these up
almost
at the
anything
store.
Well,
Like,
I
it
thought
was,
you,
avoid
I
sending
it was around
documents
her
related to
birthday.
these
It was a
cases,
birthday gift.
especially when
Like,
children
no, it was a whole
are
thing, and
attached
I
to some sort
knew.
of
Everyone
cover
else
up.
was like,
Errol
what?
Musk right
I
here,
was like,
there's
I
a
have a kid
clear
to save.
cover
Like,
up
no,
going
it's
on,
a,
3
it's a
investigations,
big
all
thing.
these
Like,
allegations,
well,
and
my
family
sister
members that
knew.
have been
and like
vocal not
everyone at
only within
Lanier
their
is
family
working
but
class
also
people.
with
Like,
the
it's
court
not
systems
just, yeah,
and with the
so.
authorities. The
So yeah,
investigations have been
somebody
opened,
worked really
and yet
hard.
nothing has
Whoever the
Mm-hmm.
happened.
kid won because it's
So,
been a
is it really
lawsuit.
shocking that they
Or
wouldn't give
uncle,
those
yeah, like,
documents to the New York
yeah.
Times? They would find an excuse as to why
Yeah,
they
we
didn't
need a
want to
good
release this
Christmas movie.
information. The Times
Christmas
also
movie about
interviewed
trying to
family
find a
members,
toy.
social
Mm-hmm.
workers, and people
It's
close to
been
the
what? It's been
Musks.
a little
Some
while.
Was
requested
this what I was
anonymity
supposed
because
to
of the
get?
sensitive
I
situations,
want to
while
say
others feared
yes.
Was it?
retribution.
I
Other
thought
Was
it
family
it
was.
members declined to
either? It was one
comment
of
or
the
did
pink
not
ones.
respond to requests for
It was
comment.
one of
The
the pink
Times
ones.
does not
Thought
name
you
children
got
in
it.
cases. In recent
I
months,
think I
some
got the
family
one I
members have
was.
been angered by Errol
I
Musk's
say, well,
apparent
But no,
attempt
it
at
would make sense. You
capitalizing
want
on
happy
Elon
Christmas.
Musk's
the
fame.
furthest,
Errol Musk has
like,
said he
no,
worked on a
no,
meme coin called
That's a
Musket
deal.
and
The whole
planned to
deal
build
is
a Musk
whoever's doing
tower
this
in
is
Dubai. He has since told
something,
the
a
Times he was
designer,
not
or
associated with the
Mhm.
he was
project.
famous
All the
already or
while, some
something.
family members said he has
Famous
papered over
already
or
about
lied
it.
about their family history. Miss
Yeah.
Smith said she decided to speak up
Already
after
well
Errol Musk
known
was
or
interviewed in
something. So.
February
I was
on a
gonna say,
South
No, they
African
did it
podcast
perfectly.
called
Whatever
Wide
marketing
Awake,
thing.
during
I
which
was
he
gonna say,
rambled
well,
on
Pop
about his
Tart
life without mentioning
that's
any
like
turmoil.
a famous
In June,
Asian
Miss Smith
company
spoke anonymously
anyways.
to the podcast
And then,
host
because like,
Joshua
no,
Rubin,
these things,
describing
like,
some of the
They're not
abuse
tied to a
allegations, including
television
the
show.
1993
Oh,
incident
that's
with
done
Elon
it for, I
Musk's
don't know how they did it, but
stepdaughter. The
really
stepdaughter, who is
pure
now
merch,
37
like-
and has
There's a
several
little
children,
backstory, though,
publicly addressed the
because that
situation for
guy
the first time with the
that
Times.
I
She did not
he
respond to
sold
questions
like
about the
North
abuse
Meat
allegations
Labubu.
involving Errol
That
Musk,
was like the
but said she and her
original
children did
Labubu.
not live with
And
him.
the
My
pot
kids are
like
safe and
the
live with
idea
me, she
to
said.
it.
She said her main financial
yeah.
support
This
comes
next
from
level.
Elon Musk, who
And
sends money
his
monthly and has
sculpture
bought
got
her a
sold
car.
for like
Elon has always been there, she
Well, yeah,
said.
'cause it's something to do
Errol
with the
Musk
guy
long
who
seemed
makes
to be a
them
man on the
too.
rise.
Have famous
Born and raised in
people.
Pretoria, South
Or
Africa's
well-known,
executive
you know.
capital, he
So-
gained prominence as a businessman in his 20s and 30s, including as a partner in an engineering company. At one point, he was a Pretoria city council
like
member.
that was
In 1970, he married May Haldeman, a
First thing I
dietitian
noticed.
and
Yeah,
model.
that's pretty cool
They
how
had
they
3
did the
children.
Uh-huh.
Elon,
I'm a little
Tosca
deaf.
Musk, who
Yeah,
now
no,
runs
it
a
does.
streaming
You're
service
almost
for
little
romance
scale.
films, and Kimball Musk, who became an entrepreneur. In
Whatever. Big
1979,
boss.
Errol Musk
Gonna
and May
whoop him.
Musk divorced.
This
She wrote in
happiness
a
of Labubu
2019
made me
memoir that
have
he
a lot
had
of
physically and
happiness.
verbally abused
yeah.
her. Errol Musk denied the abuse at times. Elon Musk, too, had a tense relationship with his father. In the 2023 authorized biography, he recounted how he had stood up to a school bully as a child and lost a fight, after which Errol Musk berated him for an hour. He lost it, went ballistic, as he often did, Elon Musk said.
There
He had
is a
zero
rare.
compassion.
Oh, no,
While he chose to live with Errol Musk through
It's
much of
like
high school
I was
after
reading
his
it
parents
because I
divorced,
was,
Elon
doing
Musk
this
later
little
told his
discount.
biographer
But
it had been a terrible
it's
idea.
like
I didn't yet know how horrible he
it
was.
only
He said
pops up in
Errol
like
Musk was
1
briefly
in
married a
72
second time to
boxes.
Sue Wilson, a model.
And see,
In
there's
1989,
there's
Elon
6 or
Musk,
8
then
in a box,
17,
6 in a
left
box.
South
I know.
Africa for North
There's a lot of
America.
hope
His brother and sister followed, as
Like,
did
yeah, all
Elon
those,
Musk.
see
Errol
how it
Musk
works
wed
is
a
all
third
those
time
little
around
guys, all
1992.
6 of them,
His bride was
they
Heidi Marie
come in a box
who was
set.
about 19
And
years
you're
younger than he
bidding
was.
for
She had
one
3 young
out of
children,
that box.
2 boys and a girl, with her
And then,
first
but then
husband who
1
died
in
in a car
72
accident. Miss
boxes,
Beswedenhout struggled with her
one of
mental
the
health.
one of
Family
those will
members
be
said
the rare.
she and Errol Musk
Yeah.
soon had a daughter.
No,
In
it's
1993,
it
Miss
depends. I told
Beswedenhout's
you, bro.
4-year-old daughter from her first marriage
I
told her
told you,
aunt,
bro, it's
Miss
intense.
Smith, that Errol Musk had placed her on a row of trash cans at the family house in Pretoria and touched her.
No,
Miss
mom
Smith
had
said
to
she
get
and
on the
other
Reddit,
relatives
bro.
immediately
Figure out how to
contacted the
get it because
authorities.
I kept
The
trying
police
and
opened
then
an investigation.
Hmm.
Family
Like your
members
mom taught her
provided a
how to
case
take a
number
No,
for
I
the
know,
incident
I
that the
know.
South African
But
police
yeah, and
confirmed.
so
People
The
hunt.
I
Times
thought,
filed a public records
oh, it's
request
not
for the
out of
case file
stock.
in
I can
July.
just go
The
pop
police
over and
have
put
not
one in my
decided
car.
on the request.
And I
Miss
found out quickly that's
Beswedenhout
not
later
how it
withdrew
works.
charges
we're out of
against
juice
Errol
cups,
Musk as part of a divorce
juice
settlement, which included a house,
boxes,
car,
pouches.
and monthly allowance,
So
according to
just
family
setting up
members.
control.
In a
You can
2010
get a
letter from
milk
the
Yeah,
or
relative
whatever.
seeking
Man, why you
Elon
trying
Musk's
to
help.
fade me?
After the divorce, Errol Musk said that a judge had granted him custody of their young
I'm
daughter and that 2
scared.
judges rejected the abuse allegations.
For a
Miss
snack later
Beswedenhout
after
could visit only with a
another one.
social
Come on.
worker present,
So
he
like
said.
Saturday.
The Times searched for court
So
records
yeah,
and the
no, the
judges
it's Friday.
did not
That's why I
find
started,
records to
yeah.
verify
I
Errol Musk's
I
claims. In
didn't. I
1996, Miss
think I already told
Beswedenhout
you.
briefly
Like
married and
they got
divorced a
banned
third
from Pop
husband.
Tarts since
She
there was
then
being
entered a
violence
psychiatric
about them.
hospital
Which one?
after suffering from depression,
Mm,
family members
those
said. Her 3 children from her first marriage
But yeah,
went
they
into an
got banned from
independent
Pop
Did
living
Tarts.
they?
home.
Yeah.
Around 1999, she
My
remarried Errol Musk,
nephews,
who retained custody of their daughter. Her
your
3 other
uncles
children
or
left
whatever,
welfare care in 2000. The next
when
year,
they were
Errol
young,
Musk
about
and
your
Miss
age, there was
Beswedenhout
a
had
thing
another
called
daughter.
hogs,
By 2002,
Hogs?
Elon
and they
Musk
were
was a
gambling with
millionaire
them, but
after a
they'd be
Silicon
rare,
Valley
and then you
startup he
gambled with
founded,
them, like
which
you
became
played a game,
PayPal, which
and
was
then you'd
bought by
win the
eBay.
other
Then living in
person's
Los
hog.
Angeles, he
And I remember
established the rocket
this was
maker
like all over the
SpaceX. That
country.
year,
Mhm.
Errol Musk, Miss
They
Beswedenhout,
did.
and their family
They
traveled
did.
to
They got bad
California
with
to
kids
see
like
Elon
fighting over
Musk, who
hogs,
bought them
all
a
that.
$2 million
Yeah, that kind of
house
stuff
in
got
Malibu.
banned quick.
Within months, the
And there was
situation
something
unraveled.
beside
One day,
something
Errol
about
Musk's
slap
family headed
something.
to a
Remember
movie
that, like
when
a
his
medallion,
stepdaughter,
or
then
There's
14,
those was
said
a
she had
thing
forgotten
too
her
for a while.
I
sweatshirt.
don't remember,
She
but
returned
yeah.
to her
Some
bedroom
game
for
where
it
you
and
slapped a
found her
hand,
stepfather
or I
sniffing her
can't
dirty
remember.
underwear,
You can
according
send
to
me with a
family
couple
members and
donuts
personal
too,
notes.
because I can't
The
eat them
family
right now.
called the police. Elon Musk was also alerted.
Yeah,
Family
this
members
got
said
the
they filed a
original
complaint with
packaging.
Child
They
Protective
completely
Services in Los
changed.
Angeles.
Oh,
A
how
department
they package
spokeswoman,
them.
It
citing
was
victim
like
privacy,
that one,
declined to
but like
comment.
the
The Los Angeles
Mhm.
Police Department
Well,
also
they probably
denied a
do that
records
too to
request,
help with
saying
piracy.
investigation records
Mhm.
were
They
exempt from
change it
disclosure.
so often.
I've
Well,
heard that
just like
before.
we
We
got a
can't
fake
release
one that
investigative
had a
records.
package that
We
looked
can't
real.
release this because
Yeah.
of disclosure. We can't do this. We can't
So,
send this to
and
you.
even
It's very
like
infuriating.
I
It's
was
like
kind of
there's the
sketchy about
FOIA law, which is great for
the thing
transparency,
that came in
but
because
there's
that
also
did not
so
look
many
like the
ways that
meetings
these
that
agencies
ended.
can
I
get
was like,
around the FOIA law. Think about this article so far, what they've been talking about.
well,
Almost every single person and agency involved in this case that the New York
I
Times
got
tried
big
to
thoughts.
FOIA
and
request
I
for
got
information,
big balls.
regardless
He
if you
runs around at
agree
night.
or
That's where
disagree
all
with the
folks
New
are.
York
He
Times
does.
political
like old
slant or
grandma.
He
mainstream
sneaks
media
around
or
like this. He's a
whatever.
big boss. So he
Just
sneaks.
assume,
That's
just
why
think
you
about
never
the
see
fact
him.
that they are one of the
Because he
Mom,
never-
in a
largest
hurry.
news sources in
Yeah,
America.
you do
Doesn't
need
matter
him.
if you like them, doesn't matter if you
He's
disagree.
a
You
master of
cannot deny the
camouflage.
fact that they are one of the
My
largest
little
news
movie
resources in the country, and even they are getting stonewalled by these departments. They got stonewalled according to the article in South Africa. They got stonewalled in Los Angeles.
Oh, mine looks dirty now.
No one responded to this. No one responded to that. There seems to be a culture of fear surrounding the story and a culture of silence. But let's continue. A restraining order was issued against Errol Musk, 3 people with knowledge of the filing said. Miss Bezwedenhout petitioned for divorce in Los Angeles Superior Court, citing irreconcilable differences and requested custody of the
And
children.
I had your
according to
brother
the filing.
check our
The petition
Instagram
was
thing
dismissed in 2009
for
for
Did she
Pokemon.
not
inaction.
update
Errol
it?
Musk
I
denied
haven't
the
seen the
accusation. He
update.
said he had been
I
beaten
Seriously?
up his
should look
stepdaughter's
into
room
it.
after returning from the
Yeah,
trip,
it's been
and had
30
found the
days
house in a
already.
terrible
Way
state.
more
The
than
stepdaughter
30
said
Yeah,
she was
he
in
could have
Malibu.
announced
Elon
the
Musk
winner
took her and her
somewhere
siblings
and
on
Yeah.
weekly outings as they
There's
performed
this
well at
dude,
school.
he
He
does
told
like
them they needed to
spoiled
read a lot of
food
books
products.
if they wanted
Yeah.
to make it in
Excited.
life, she
But
said.
in the
After
next
the
video
abuse
he does
allegations,
about it,
Elon
says,
Musk moved
oh,
his
these are
father
the
to a
people that
boat
won.
in
You
Los
guys go
Angeles
to this,
and then back to South
do this
Africa.
email.
Errol
Yeah.
Musk said he left the
I don't
United
think
States of
Pokemon
his own
actually
accord
did. I think
and has
it's
said the
lying about
estrangement
their
from his
lives.
eldest son
Hopefully.
began around
Hopefully
then.
we can
Elon
find
Musk
out.
wanted to keep the children in California to protect
Hopefully
them
it
from his
wasn't a
father.
fake
Family
giveaway
members and
for
friends said
harvesting
he
data.
explored seeking legal guardianship of them. They said, back in South Africa, Errol Musk had become financially reliant on his eldest sons. He emailed Elon
Hopefully
Musk asking for
Pokemon
money.
is not
I'm
a
now
data
totally
harvester.
dependent on your card here, Errol Musk wrote in the email, which was
Because I
obtained
don't
by the
think he
Times.
needs so
Kimball
much.
Musk, who was copied,
I
replied,
love my.
financially,
No,
this
he's
has
cute.
been horrible, but much worse for
Her?
Elon than you.
It?
Not just in
I think
absolute
it's a
dollars,
her.
which are
It's a her?
considerable,
Do they
but
have
in the pain
gender?
and frustration.
Yes.
The
Well,
scariest
I'm
thing
just
to
saying,
me is
sometimes
that the kids
monsters
prefer
are,
living in the children's home than
sometimes
with either
monsters
you
are just
or me.
monsters.
Kimball Musk added, referring to the
Yellow.
independent welfare home. In the 2023 biography, Elon Musk told his biographer that his father had been uncomfortably attentive to his stepdaughter at the time, and that he was furious about Errol Musk's inappropriate behavior. In
Watch that thing,
2003,
baby.
Miss Bezwidenhout and
Don't
4
lose
of her
it, you'll be
children
sad.
voluntarily
That's all.
returned to South Africa,
Try
which
not
they
to lose
considered
it.
home, family members said. Her eldest son followed later. She then divorced Errol Musk for a second time in 2005. The next year, her younger son, age 16, died in a car accident near Malmesbury, South Africa. She wrote to Elon Musk around 2007 that she was in a very bad situation and living in a house with no bathroom or kitchen. Elon Musk, who became chief executive of the electric car maker Tesla in 2008, paid a contractor to fix Ms. Weidenhout's house and build a fence around it, family members said. He also paid for private school for his
Did you give me your
half-sisters,
lunchbox?
according to emails. At the same time, the
Yeah.
former stepdaughter was
Bring me your
descending into
lunchbox.
drugs, which she said was fueled by anguish over her brother's death. She spent time in jail on charges that she stole jewelry from Errol Musk and Miss Bezwidenhout to pay for drugs, according to family notes. By 2009, Miss Bezwidenhout had reconnected with Errol Musk, bringing her children back into his orbit. One
We
night,
have a
her
makeup
former
day.
stepdaughter, then 21, was home from college.
It might
Errol
just be
Musk
on Zoom,
kissed her
though.
and stuck his
Let's see.
tongue into her
Hopefully it's
mouth,
at the
she
library.
said in an application for
Haven't
an
been to the
interim
library in a
protection
while.
order. I don't want him to be allowed to come close to
Like,
me.
you forget
The
how
former
long it's
stepdaughter
been
wrote in the interim
been to the
protection
library
order,
until you
which
go
was
again.
granted by the magistrate's
And you're like,
court
oh,
in the
hey, it's been
district
a
of
minute. I
Stellenbosch.
forgot.
In his response to the Times, Errol Musk said his former stepdaughter pounced on him in a spare bedroom while he was sleeping. She inappropriately kissed me, he said. In the interim protection order, the former stepdaughter also directly accused Errol Musk of
I almost broke that
his
cup.
2 daughters with Miss Bezwidenhout and of abusing his stepson years before he died, without providing details. The letter Miss Bezwidenhout wrote to Elon Musk around 2007 also referenced abuse allegations by one of
Bless
her 2
you.
daughters with Errol Musk. The relative who wrote the letter to Elon Musk around 2010
Hey, stop it.
noted the same
Leave people
allegations as the interim protection order. Errol Musk
one of
called
them
the
now,
accusations that he had abused his stepson nonsense and
They
that he
have
had
water.
abused
I
his
gave
2
water
daughters
last night.
absurd. The former stepdaughter dropped out of college and fell further into drugs, according to family members and family notes. She told the Times the trauma she experienced growing up led to her drug use. In 2011, Miss Smith, the sister of Miss Bezwidenhout, wrote to Elon Musk for help. His assistant replied saying she had spoken with the billionaire and it goes without saying that you are all in a very difficult situation there. The assistant called the circumstances of Errol Musk's former stepdaughter dire and said Elon Musk would pay for her to stay in a rehabilitation clinic. The former stepdaughter went to rehab for a week or 2, family members said.
That
For
might
a
be a
time,
good
she
idea.
became homeless. They said
might take it
Errol
at,
Musk's
like, the
former
last day
stepdaughter
of
later
school.
reached out to him
That's
for
a little
support.
less harmless.
By then, she was
Yeah.
about 29.
Why don't you
They
take it to
became
school and then
intimate,
go
Errol Musk
give it
said
to
in
your
a
mom?
2018 interview with the Sunday Times.
Why don't you do
He and his
that
former
for
stepdaughter
60?
were
Can you do
lonely,
that? Is
lost
that
people.
manageable?
He said,
Yeah.
Well,
one thing
I
led
know
to
you want
another.
to show
You
people.
can call it
Yeah.
God's
So,
plan or nature's
so.
plan. Errol Musk
Not
has said in
bad.
interviews
Man,
that he had
you
not
stink.
seen his former
That's
stepdaughter for years,
what it's for,
which family
man.
members dispute. He has also said
good
that
are
he and his
comic
former
books if people
stepdaughter
don't
had
know who
children
owned
together
them,
in
dude?
2017 and 2019, but told the Times it was none of your business how many children he had with her. The former stepdaughter said she has one child with Errol Musk. She has been clean from drugs for several years, she added, with her life changing after having children. Family members said she has
I'd
accepted
be
some
nervous
financial
too.
support from
And then you
Errol
have to
Musk
watch it
for
all
their
day.
son. In 2022, their son,
You have
then
to
about
worry about it.
5, said he had been groped by his father. Family members said, he said, Dad gropes his behind. Miss Biswidenhout, the boy's grandmother, texted a
We're out
relative
of water.
around
Low on water.
2023.
You
He
want
screamed, "No, Dad." Relatives contacted
no
the
cold,
police,
yep.
including as recently as last
Here you
year,
go, Swine.
according to text messages and emails. A social worker who was involved said in an interview that she tried meeting with family members to discuss what happened, but they would not cooperate. The social worker called the police. The police opened an investigation, said family members who provided a case number. A police spokeswoman confirmed the case number was for an investigation into child allegations, but declined to name those involved. Prosecutors dropped the case because of insufficient evidence, the spokeswoman said. In response to the Times, Errol Musk said there was no
I don't
evidence
know
because
your
this is
tongue
nonsense.
keeps getting
Around
wet.
2023,
But that was the urban
Elon Musk
legend
began
when I was a
paying
kid.
30,000
You go up to
grand a month,
Michigan, that was the
about
kind of thing.
$1,700
And
to
supposedly, yeah,
support
it'll
his
freeze
former
to it.
stepsister. Family
So, and then
members
you have to
said
pour some
that
warm
year
water
he
on
also
there
made
to
a
get your
rare
tongue off.
comment about Errol
I don't
Musk
know
on
if that's
social
true or
media.
not. I never
In a
tried
reply
it.
to a
No one
post
was
about
ever
his
brave enough
financial
to try.
background, Elon Musk said that
But
one
you're right.
condition that he and Kimball Musk had in supporting their father was that Errol Musk would not engage in bad behavior. Their father nonetheless did, Elon Musk wrote.
Careful.
So that's the end of the article, and I'm sure we could go deeper and deeper and find more and more and chronicle the history of all this, but I just intended on making this a short video, reading through this article, reacting to it, talking to you guys about it,
Through
because we are seeing
Bangladesh,
everything that I've been talking
the
about
jungles
playing
of
out in real
Thailand.
time. Whether it's been covering Epstein for years on my social medias, for years on TikTok, predicting things that were going to happen, to talking about these power structures and how these people that are in these positions are protected. Look at this shit once again. Does this not piss you off? This is a powerful, openly being protected. You have 3 different police investigations here that led nowhere. Lack of evidence. It's unclear what happened with one of the other ones, and they just make this go away time and time again. And the guy is still allowed to be around children. Those allegations, they're historical from the 90s, but they go all the way up to 2022. They're in recent years. This guy is still doing this shit. Now, in an upcoming episode, weirdly enough, yesterday I just recorded an episode about the story from South Africa that happened in the late 80s and 90s involving prominent businessmen, local leaders, and politicians in the Pretoria area where Errol Musk obviously was living and from. And at that time, there was a former police officer named Gert Van Rooyen who, along with his romantic partner Joey, is suspected to have kidnapped a number of young girls and sold them into
the one on the right is cold.
and potentially murdered them. But there are,
Is
I
on
was
the
just
left,
recording that
right,
episode
or the
yesterday.
cold.
There were brothel
Normally,
owners
unless you're in a
interviewed as a
motel.
part of
Sometimes
that
motels, they're
investigation, which
backwards.
ultimately led
Depending on
nowhere.
what side
Once
of the
again,
wall
because
you're
the
on.
South African police in that area completely dropped the ball. They never found these young girls' bodies, 6, 7, 8 children. Just vanished off the face of the earth, and they never found them. They never followed up on leads. They never talked to victims. They never investigated that thing. So that goes to show not only the South African police work when it comes to these people is sloppy, and they don't seem to care. But I just find it very, very interesting that Errol Musk is now accused of being a powerful, and at the same time that he was doing some of those things, he was living in the same region in South Africa where these little girls were vanishing and being sold into a trafficking network, allegedly. And yeah, local brothel owners were telling detectives that there were powerful businessmen and police officers and
it's a real
government
thing.
officials from that area that were visiting these brothels, seeking children, looking for children, bringing children in there. So it's weird, but we're going to explore that story, the Gert Van Rooyen story, very soon on the podcast. There's so much detail there that's incredibly just bizarre and f***ed up. But thank you guys for listening. Thank you guys for watching. If you've enjoyed today's show, be sure to like the video, leave me a comment letting me know your thoughts, subscribe to the channel. We're trying to get to 1 million. That would be great. And yeah, thank you guys once again for listening. We've had a lot of growth this month. We've had a lot of growth this month. Yeah, I appreciate each and every one of you who's out there trying to seek out the truth with me. And as always, stay suspicious. Always question everything. Keep that tinfoil hat on. And I'll see you guys next week.
Right on, dog. Come on, man. Pass me the joint. You're gonna shoot me over $200, man. You lift weights? I lift weights.
I just was good. Every single makes me feel alive.
Hey folks, it's me. I'm back.
I'm gonna get me a happy
If you
farmer
picked up King
kid.
Leopard yet, you can get it on Amazon. Amazon edition will be blue instead of green. This is kind of Poole Anderson meets George R.R. Martin. That's what I built it as. It's mostly in the classic fantasy vein. I hope you will enjoy it. Check it out. Link is down below in the description. Now,
When I find that
I want to talk about,
I'm gonna kill him.
besides my book that you should buy, I want to talk about selling the illusion of desire. This is the model for how strippers make money, and it's also the model for how women make money on OnlyFans. OnlyFans mechanizes and scales up this illusionary girlfriend experience, but that's where the money is, and it really goes back to strip clubs. You might say it goes back into antiquity, right, with men who are convinced that the prostitute is interested in them. But in this case, with strippers, the man never really gets the satisfaction, right? That's illegal in most locations. Instead, what you get is a bunch of things that fall short of that, even things that involve physical stimulation, like a lap dance. And that itself really leads men into this parasocial relationship, this term that people have used a lot. What is a parasocial relationship? It's like a slightly illusory social relationship. It's a loose social relationship where, you have a feeling that you have a friendship with a content creator, but they don't really know you, right? So that's kind of what a parasocial relationship is. This is something a little bit more than that. This is a totally fake, illusory, intentionally illusory relationship with a person, where that person is being intentionally deceived into the nature of what the relationship is in order to extract money out of the person. And I saw this in strip clubs. Just to be completely honest, like, I've been to strip clubs. I haven't been to one in a long time. I haven't been to one since I've been with my wife, but I went to ones before that because that tends to be party activity on people's birthdays or for bachelor parties here in the U.S. It's a very popular activity, and you end up going to these things, especially when you're young and you think it's all fun.
No.
Not really thinking about how this works. But I saw this firsthand, and
I'm not being racist. I'm just saying.
And I really figured out what they were doing really quickly after seeing it and experiencing it, and was able to avoid pretty easily the pitfall of what I have seen firsthand men do. Friends of mine, I've seen them basically spend all their rent money, spend their mortgage on a stripper.
Poor people are loud. What do you want
Under
me to
the
say?
belief that somehow that stripper is going to make a longer-term connection with them.
We're front porch people, bro.
So I'll just give you an anecdote. I had a
front
friend,
yard.
and
We're front yard people, not backyard
we were at a bachelor party trip or something. We went to a strip club, and
we
the
play
way
in
that
the
they do
front
this
yard,
is
not
like,
the
they have like the
backyard.
dances that people like throw the money at, and that's not where the girls make their money. They make their money basically
like
funneling men
Kansas.
into these more private encounters,
No, you missed it.
where you might have a
We were
lap
talking
dance
or
on the
something.
floor. That might be, I don't know, back then it
Dad,
was like $20.
I think we're the loudest family,
Scale it up now.
in this area.
But really what they're doing is they talk to the man.
Obviously, you haven't been
They're
around
engaged in
enough
conversation. And then they persuade him to do a private dance,
Like,
which we
yeah,
go
we're
to a
loud,
private
but-
room. And in that private room,
This whole duplex.
it's this idea you're in private,
Romance
anything
circles.
could happen. So one side of men think that this woman's going to be a prostitute, which They virtually never are. And the other side is a man who thinks this girl likes me. And that's the whole point. She goes in and talks to you, asks you what you do, blah, 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 blah. And if you've ever spent any time at strip clubs, you find that the strippers talk to you a lot. And they talk to you not because they're actually interested. They don't really care about you at all, other than your money. They know that what they have to do is start to build some rapport with you so that you'll think that they are interested in you, and then they're like, oh, we can go to the private room and talk, but it's $100. And it's $50 for another dance, and $50, and before you know it, the guy spends $1,200. I have firsthand seen men spend over $1,000 on strippers. I watched a recent YouTube video. Not actually, the video was not recent. I watched it recently. And it was from a bouncer who worked at strip clubs, and he was basically explaining this, that the guys that really they made their money from were these lonely, kind of passive guys who wanted female attention. The product they were being sold was female attention, and it was the belief that the girl was somehow interested in him. But they created all of these ways that the guy could never contact her. It's not against the rules. They would give him fake names, sometimes 2 or 3 fake names. Oh, yeah, my name's not Candy. Obviously, it's Amber. And then, no, your name's not really Amber. The other girl said your name wasn't Amber. Oh, yeah, it's actually Mary or something, right? So they would go through several different names. In order to keep this illusion up that, like, oh yes, you're getting to know the real me. But the point of that video, and I believe this, having seen this, is the girls know what they're doing. They are there to extract money from men, and so whatever narrative you have about the girls being poor and desperate and, like, you know, having to make money off of their bodies and things like that, the fact is the way they actually make money is not just showing their breasts, right, or revealing other parts of their body, or even doing lap dances. It is pretending to care about a man, because that's what the man really wants. What the man wants is to be wanted. That's the male fantasy, believe it or not. The male fantasy is more than just access to the woman. It's that the woman wants him, and that's the illusion that they're selling. Scale that up to OnlyFans. It's the same thing. A guy goes on, he joins an OnlyFans, he gets a private message from the girl. Now, is that private message probably automated? Is it run by maybe the girl's dude boyfriend? Possibly. But the whole point of that private chat is to establish rapport with the person, ask them personal questions, get them to answer those personal questions so that they are revealing things about themselves, even if it's to a bot, that by revealing things about yourself to other people, you start to feel like you have an attachment to that person. You're telling your story to that person. And then they reveal things back that could be totally false. It doesn't. And then they're sending you, here's a special picture that is not on my main page. And do you want to get more pictures, or do you want to have this? Do you want to have a live chat? Right? You start selling the long tail products that make it more expensive. The whole point is to turn a casual person into a whale. And so you see this at strip clubs. If you ever go to a strip club, there's the casual, and then there's the whales. The girls are looking for the whales. They're walking the floor in between dances, talking to men to see, is this a guy from whom I can get a lot of money? And it's usually not the ones you think. It's not the guys who are wearing the Rolex watch. Because, yes, they have money, and you might be able to get money from them, but it's actually the very normal-looking guy. It's the guy who looks like he wants female attention. They're going to take him. They're going to try to funnel him into that bag.
No, dude, that's from literally when they walked off the conveyor belt.
I have seen guys. I have gone to the club with guys
no, dude, I'm
left
not
that
kidding.
To hit the ATM.
Some of that cheek sausage, some of those cheeks, it's literally,
it's just like at a casino. You ever see somebody
my
bust?
too weak for that.
They go bust at like a blackjack table, and what do? They go to the ATM.
I think that's about around that time.
Oh, that's a problem.
This is how I became a vegetarian in middle school.
Because you know it's true.
Yeah.
You start talking about it.
We had a health teacher that like had us watch it.
The real shit, how they treat those animals, dude. It'll make you not want to eat food.
Because my parents were pissed.
It's like, I've seen guys that come out of that private room and they're like, I'm going to meet her afterwards.
I came home and I was like, I'm not eating anything.
Oh, you mean the teacher pulled back the curtain and let them see where their food comes from? Oh, forgive me, dude.
Yeah, like, they were pissed because I came home that day and I was like, I'm not eating.
The security's there to protect
all of a
the girls
sudden it turned around. You saw
weirdos.
Ronald McDonald
Not
in
that
a
you would do
whole new
anything,
light.
Yeah.
No, you do.
the
You're
girl
like,
got
oh,
all of your
yeah.
money.
clown is a
She
killer.
wants to see you again.
She showed
She's
us a
hoping to do
video
that to
that
another
has
guy tomorrow. That's how
an
they make their money.
industrial pig and
That's
an
what they do with this.
industrial like cow.
No,
That's what they do
And
with
it
this
was
Do you
like,
shower in
and it's the same thing with
doo-doo?
I
OnlyFans.
still
Now,
think that best one is.
I will say,
it's not
I'll share
anti-meat.
another
It's
anecdote about this, which is
anti-factory
that
that
farming.
was
a lot of
hers.
times
It
people
wasn't.
are
It was,
thinking about
Yeah,
but
it
it's where
wasn't.
the pig thinks
stripper
he's in the
rather than how they
Matrix
make
or
money,
something
which is
and wakes up.
basically
Because no, it
conning
even
men.
shows you. You don't
But
realize, but like when you go
I had
into
a
the
friend who
meat
worked at a
section,
strip
they
club.
show
He
a
was like
little
the DJ
farm
and the
and they
announcer.
show
And I
the
was like,
animals being
before
all
I knew what was up,
happy.
And
Like, yeah,
I
they're
was 20
selling
or
you
whatever. I
something.
was like, oh, that
It's
sounds
not
like a
fucking.
great job. He's like,
That
actually,
would
it
be
was a
the main
terrible
argument.
job.
Dude,
Because you
be
get to know
honest
these
with them.
girls,
Yeah.
and
Like you're raising and
they're
slaughtering
not,
these fucking
you know,
animals,
I
bro.
think
you
that
don't date them.
it
You would
didn't
never
go
date,
to the
want to
inside
date
of the
them. You can't
chicken
take them home to
factory,
mom.
but I think
They're
it did
full of
show like
problems. They're
basically
messed
how
up,
they lived too. Like
and
that
you
was
feel
part
bad
of the
about what they're
video.
doing, degrading
Was showing the
themselves.
whole
You
like
feel
yeah, the
bad
whole
about
They're
what they're
brand.
torturing
doing
these
to
fucking
get
animals.
con men out of
And
money.
so like yeah,
You
her
just feel
point
bad about it.
wasn't
Plus,
to
you
make
can't tell
people
your
not
mom
like me, but
what
yeah, it was
you do
to
for a living. Like, you can't tell
understand
your own
where
mom.
it was coming
They're
It's a
from.
problem.
torturing these
You
animals
can't,
to
you
make
can't continue on with that.
0.3
It
cents
why you
more
trying to
disrupts the whole illusion of, oh,
And
it's a
it
club
was
full of hot girls. Wouldn't
not
that be cool? It's like,
anti-meat,
yeah,
it
it's
was
cool for like 5 minutes.
It was
anti-industrial.
And same thing when you go there.
anti-fascist
If you go there
corporatism that doesn't give a
with
fuck
the
about anything
illusion
except
pulled back,
profit.
what you
But
see
yeah,
is
so
just
anyways, no, I
a
can't remember.
really sad
I still
situation
remember
where
the
you're
videos to this
Well,
day.
no, that
you're
was
not
it was
going to
a good one.
The
participate in
memory had
losing
to
your money.
fade so I could eat meat.
It's
No,
just
it isn't
it's
like
just a bunch of people
Yeah.
trying to
no,
con
she's right.
people out of
It's
money, con
it's
other
the
people out of money.
lie.
That's
It's not
that's
so
what you
much,
get at the
but
strip
the
club.
lie
Okay, so
is
OnlyFans
bad.
is the same
Be
thing with that.
honest.
What is
And now
just
you
as
know you
disturbing
can't
to me
take
about
cameras in
OnlyFans,
there
and I
and
think
shit
it's going
because
to
it's
maybe be
Bush.
a
They got
long-term
Bush to
problem
pass.
in our society, is the number of girls who've done OnlyFans
Well,
and
because
how
people
little
were
money
going
they
in
actually
there
make
and
at it. Because
exposing what was
this was also
happening.
true in the strip
And then they
clubs,
know
is
that
that
turns people's
there were
stomach.
girls who
Oh
would
my
just
God,
not make any
we
money. They
can't
had to pay
see
people
how
at the
you
end of the day,
raise your
like
air. Like, that's
$50 or
Jewish
$100
law,
to show
dude.
to
See,
basically
now you know
have a
why there's
spot
those
that night
laws
to
and
try
why
to
it's so
get money.
old.
Now, if you can
No,
get
I
one
want
guy
to
to a
know how
private
you
room,
killed
you've
it.
made all your
I
money
want to
for
know
the
where
night
my
there.
food is
But other
coming
times you
from,
didn't
dude.
do
I
it. So
want to
there were
know
girls
who's
that
touched
stripped
my food.
and got no money. But with OnlyFans, it's worse because they're stripping and they're not getting any money. I think I saw like the average OnlyFans is like $50 a month or something. They make, like the girl makes, so that means that like half of them are making less than
let's
that.
go load
roughly,
up.
you know, it means like there's a huge concentration of girls who make virtually no money on OnlyFans. But unlike the strip club where it's live, right? If somebody sees you there, they may never know you again. If it's a big city or whatever, it's more anonymous. On OnlyFans, your pictures are on the internet forever. So you've basically made yourself a digital prostitute for nothing. Like you sold, what's the Dostoevsky quote? Like your greatest sin is that you sold your soul for nothing or something, right? Like your greatest sin is that you did this for nothing. Like you got no reward for doing this, and that's awful. But that's what we're going to think of going forward. I think that's the main thing that I wanted to get across. When you understand that the product is selling men the illusion of a woman's interest, the whole thing is just way grosser. It's just way worse than what you would think. And it's why there's never been a place that I've really cared to go other than like curiosity. Maybe when I was 21, I think like my friend, I had a friend who took me on my 21st birthday. He might be watching this video. And we went there, and it was an interesting experience, but you figure out pretty quick, like, what is actually up with that. And then the other times I went with bachelor parties, it's like, no, don't do that. Don't go in that private room. He's like, no, dude, it's cool. It's cool. It's cool. And I'm like, no, it's not cool. You're just going to give her money for no reason, for nothing. You're not even going to get,
and show it up.
The satisfaction of an ending.
She's
out
making
of that,
a really
right?
smart decision.
But it happens.
So I
and
can't
that's the way it works. So anyway, leave me your thoughts down below. I know that's kind of a weird thing to talk about, but I think it's important to think about how this works. Maybe outside of the sexual realm, like the parasocial relationship that people work at online in order to try to create connections with people that they don't really know and don't really want to know. right? They want to create the illusion that there's a connection there. Now, I'm asking for comments, and it's like, well, this is parasocial. It's like, the comments inform me a lot, and I have a lot of great conversations in the comments, and I know a lot of you the way that I know other people on other platforms, like on X. It doesn't mean that you're the same level as my neighbor, but you're a person, and so I care about what you think, and you know, and I hope you're doing great. I hope everybody watching is doing great. I really do. So anyway, leave me your thoughts on that, and I would love to read them, and I'll check you all next time. Have a great day.
Jimmy Akin's Mysterious World is brought to you by the Star Quest Production Network and is made possible by our many generous patrons. If you'd like to support the podcast, please visit sqpn.com/give. You're listening to episode 384 of Jimmy Akin's Mysterious World, where we look at mysteries from the twin perspectives of faith and reason. In this episode, we're talking about demons and people's questions about them. I'm Dom Bettinelli, and joining me today is Jimmy Akin. Hey, Jimmy.
Howdy, Dom.
Be sure to stick around, everyone, for the end of the episode, as we'll have your feedback on our recent episode on Feeling the Future. But first, since the beginning of the human race, people have had to deal with the harmful spirits we know as demons. But not everyone today believes in them. The 19th century French poet Charles Baudelaire wrote that the best trick of the devil is to persuade people that he doesn't exist. So today there is a lot of confusion about demons, and recently Jimmy answered a bunch of questions about them. So, do they really exist? What are they?
You need to go outside,
and
dude.
how can we stay out of their evil clutches? That's what we'll be talking about on this episode of Jimmy Akin's Mysterious World. So, Jimmy, tell us about today's episode.
Today we're going to be listening to a recent episode of Catholic Answers Live, in which I answered a bunch of questions about demons. In the first hour, the host, Cy Kellett, asked me the questions, and then in the second hour, the callers do. So this was a topic-based episode. It's not like a regular Ask Me Anything or Weird Question show. The reason that we're airing it is that lately I've had some delays in getting Mysterious World scripts done. In July, we went to Italy. Then as soon as we got back, I got sick. Then after frantically catching up on things, I got a pinched nerve that knocked me out productively for a couple of weeks. The good news is the pinched nerve didn't hurt, and it turns out that they don't always hurt, but it did interfere with my ability to type and get scripts done. I've thus needed to make some special arrangements, because even though I could just take a week or a month off, I really want to have new episodes for the listeners every single week. Recently, we did 2 episodes based on an interview I did on Glitch Bottle, in which ceremonial magicians asked me questions about demons and related mysterious subjects. And right after that, Catholic Answers asked me to cover demons from the Catholic perspective. So I thought that I'd use that episode here on Mysterious World so that we could also cover Catholic questions about demons in addition to the ceremonial magicians' questions, and that's what we'll be doing today.
So what questions will we be covering?
We're going to be looking at things like, is it permitted to think of demons merely as metaphors for human evil? What is a demon? What do they actually have the power to do in our daily lives? Are they equal in power? Why did they fall? How can we avoid their evil clutches? You know, what are the differences between phenomena like possession, oppression, and obsession? And a whole bunch more.
So you run out of fat.
All right.
Means you're
then
hungry.
Let's listen to your recent Ask Me Anything about demons.
Your host yesterday, it was the Blessed Trinity, and today we're going the opposite direction. We're going complete opposite direction. Try to think, what's the opposite direction of talking about the Blessed Trinity? Yep, we're going to talk about demons today. We got Jimmy Akin here with us, senior apologist at Catholic Answers, and I've got questions I want to ask him about demons. And then the second hour, I'll let you ask him whatever you'd like to ask him about demons. And that number is 888-318-7884. And Jim, in addition to being a senior apologist here at Catholic Answers, Jimmy is author of, look at a whole bunch of books. The Bible is a Catholic Book, The Fathers Know Best, Teaching with Authority, A Daily Defense. I got a stack of Jimmy Akin books right here next to me. Jimmy Akin, welcome. Thanks for doing this with us today.
My pleasure, Cy Kellett.
Is this a topic that you have covered on Jimmy Akin's Mysterious World?
In various ways, yes, and have done a good bit on it and plan to do quite a bit more in the future.
Okay, so I know you have done some very good stuff. I've enjoyed the stuff you've done on exorcisms, and it just seems an area that is ripe for both scholarship and chicanery.
Yep, both of those things.
Yeah.
How about that?
Yeah. I guess because it's unseen and people. So I know that you take you take the approach of faith and reason, and you'll apply reason and revelation to these things.
Whoa, my glasses.
Let's get right into it. First of all, I do think many modern people would say, look, when you read the Bible and you read about exorcisms and demons and all of that, this is essentially metaphorical language. We're talking about kind of human evil or the troubles that people get themselves into. And the demon is a metaphor, not a real person, not a real personality. What do we make of that as Catholics?
Well, this is an idea that has kind of been around to different degrees in different periods of history. When it really became popular was in the 19th and 20th centuries, basically after the European Enlightenment. And it has manifested not only in Christian circles in Europe in general, but it's also manifested in Catholic circles, particularly, like I said, in the 19th and 20th centuries. You would want to say, from a faith perspective, well, what evidence do you have for this claim? And people who favor this hypothesis might say, well, when we look at the symptoms that are displayed, for example, by some of the demoniacs in the Bible, they sound something like symptoms of other conditions. For example, when Jesus meets the Gadarene demoniac, Mark notes that, he used to bash himself with stones and howl and things like that. And you could say, well, that sounds like behavior that could be caused by a mental illness, this self-harm and incoherent ramblings and stuff like that. There are various psychological illnesses that can cause people to do things like that.
Right.
Then in several of the Gospels, after they have had the Transfiguration and they come down from the Mount of Transfiguration, Jesus and his core disciples encounter a man who has a son that is epileptic. And he says he's had this demon since childhood, and it causes him to fall into the fire or fall into the water, and he foams at the mouth and things like that, which are symptoms of epilepsy. And your disciples weren't able to drive the demon out, but what can you do about it? And Jesus then drives the demon out. And you could say, well, this is a physical set of symptoms here. This boy had epilepsy, and it just got interpreted as if it's a demon. And so that's the kind of basis that someone who favors this metaphorical view of demons would have. They point to these other auxiliary symptoms and say these were cases of misdiagnoses. But the problem is that the argument does not entail its own conclusion. Just because someone has symptoms that can be explained by other known conditions like mental illness or epilepsy or things like that, that doesn't mean that's the root cause. And so these same demoniacs displayed other symptoms. They would, for example, display, like the Gadarene demoniacs displayed an alternate personality that, talked to Jesus and said, what have you to do with us, Son of God? Have you come to torture us before the times? And because this was a common view that, there had been a set time when the demons were going to be punished. And so this alternate personality is asking about that. Now, you could try to say, oh, but that's just another mental illness. That's dissociative identity disorder. But how did the demons know who he was? how did they know he's the Son of God? They're also displaying preternatural knowledge here.
Right.
And so there are things that go beyond the symptomatology that you could otherwise pick up. And then there's the fact that the exorcisms are effective in these cases. Now, you might be able to say, well, in the case of dissociative identity disorder, maybe Jesus had some therapeutic effect by performing an exorcism, but that ain't going to work on someone with epilepsy, because epilepsy is a physical condition that is not subject to the same kind of treatment that psychological conditions are. And so even looking at this from a purely secular point of view, as I have been for the last couple of minutes, if you look at the whole symptomatology, instead of just cherry picking it to support your hypothesis, it turns out that the symptomology as a whole does not support the conclusion that these demons are misdiagnoses or they're just metaphors or something like that. Then there's the fact that the Holy Spirit, moving from the reason perspective to the faith perspective, there's then the fact that the Holy Spirit has been guiding the church for the last 2,000 years, and it has guided the church to understand these as real entities. And even in the world today, we have instances where people who are demonically possessed, for example, can do preternatural things that science is not capable of explaining and that can't be reduced simply to physical or mental illness. And so, in fact, that's one of the things that the church insists on before performing a major exorcism, is that competent people look at the case and eliminate the possibility that this is just a mental or physical illness. And so it's only when the evidence goes beyond some kind of mental or physical illness that an exorcism is even permitted. And then there's the fact that the church teaches, as indicated in the Catechism of the Catholic Church, that demons are real creatures, they are real intellects, and so forth. And so I would say, from a point of view of both reason and Catholic faith, we're not permitted to simply interpret demons as metaphors for evil or things like that.
So you've kind of come near to it, but then if someone says to you then, Jimmy, what is a demon? Really, what is it? How do you answer that?
Well, it's going to depend on how you're defining it, whether you're defining it from a specifically Catholic point of view or from a broader point of view, because there is a sort of anthropological concept of a demon, because you go anywhere in the world and basically every culture and every religion has a category for a harmful spirit. And so, you know, there are harmful spirits in Judaism, there are harmful spirits in Christianity, there are harmful spirits in Islam, there are harmful spirits in Shinto, there are harmful spirits in Buddhism and Hinduism and so forth. So, and in native religions as well. So basically everywhere you go, everybody has a concept of a harmful spirit. And so speaking anthropologically, you could say, okay, well, that's what a demon is. It's just any harmful spirit. Now, in Christian circles, it has a more refined meaning than that. And this deals with the history of the term. In Hebrew, to start with Hebrew, the term for demon is shed. And the book of Deuteronomy, for example, says that the gods of the nations are shedim, they're demons. And you say, okay, well, what's that? Well, we know it's some kind of harmful spirit. We can tell that much from the word usage. But they're also associated with the gods of the nations, are also associated with some high-ranking officials in God's heavenly court. As far back as Genesis 6, but in many other passages, like at the beginning of Job, we read about God's heavenly court containing these high-ranking figures known as sons of God. And today they would be classified as angels, high-ranking angels. So that would suggest these are good figures. And what Deuteronomy seems to be saying is that at a certain point in time, when God established the nations, he put them under the tutelage of the sons of God. But then later we see evidence that some of these angelic creatures that are ruling the nations have gone bad. We see that, for example, in the book of Daniel, where we read about conflicts that are going on between the prince of Persia and the prince of Greece, and between the prince of Persia and Michael and Gabriel, who are archangels that are on God's side. And so if it's true that God put the nations under the care of these high-ranking heavenly officials known as sons of God, but later they're having fights, including fights with angels who are known to be in God's service, that would suggest that a bunch of them have gone bad. And that would explain why Deuteronomy can also say, why the Old Testament can also say,
oh, well, I guess I need, hold on.
To defend yourself, whatever the cost.
They all lost their serial numbers.
You've made the smartest decision of your life. You've come to a gun shop. We hope you get everything.
Best not to mention where you got that, okay?
Don't forget to check out our selection of landmines. They're the gift that keeps on giving, year after year. Mother-in-law being a bitch, ammunition has the solution.
I didn't sell you this, right?
Flamethrowers. We've got a special on hand grenades. And if you're too fat and lazy to throw them, check out our grenade launchers. Pop it in, pull the trigger, and boom! You've blown a hole in something. Sign up today for your ammunition frequent sniper card. Buy 10 guns and your next one is on us. Thanks for visiting Ammunition. At Ammunition, we don't need a background check. A wad of American currency. Conflict diamonds for your daughter is enough. Coming soon, armor-piercing bullets. Ask our
Take it,
about every
hold it,
favorite,
love it.
The anti-tank missile.
Have fun.
You don't need to clean the deer when he's already been minced. The store leading the fight against communism is having a blowout sale.
See you again soon.
Peacemakers. Come by Ammunition on Militia Mondays. Exercise your Second Amendment rights and get 10% off all armor-piercing bullets. We're the only gun store that lets you try it before.
Hey.
Hey, pretty lady.
I'm hungry. Let's eat.
Okay, let's move.
Look at these cards, dude.
Get filthy hands off of me. Good call on the meal. Can you take me home, baby? What the hell? I'm an excellent judge of character.
Yeah, this really interesting.
I ain't just some hood rat, CJ.
Yeah, go on.
You disrespecting a lady, huh? CJ, it is so mean. I want to open a beauty shop one day.
Oh, why?
You want to have some coffee?
No problem.
Oh, CJ, I love you.
Hey, CJ! Baby, what's up, man?
What's happening, Smoke?
Chillin'? Wanna go for a ride?
Yeah.
You drive.
All right.
We going downtown.
This better not be another cop errand, man.
No, man, this is strictly for the homies. I gotta be honest with you, CJ. We could be getting into some heavy shit, baby.
What you into, Smoke?
Lot of shit about to go down, Carl. Families coming back, ballers pushing base, Russian cats with nothing to lose about to bust some ass.
Russians?
Now, all my life, I've been told to fear the Russians, but I ain't never even met one. Then the wall comes down and we all supposed to be friends. 5 minutes later, my cousin gets laid out by some Rusky fresh off the boat.
For real?
For real.
Get out of my way, idiota!
Hey, Holmes. Hey there. Hey, did you see my number at the car show? See you later.
I didn't call in a wrong one. Look, Carl, before I walk in there, I just need to know you down with this shit, man.
Look, Smoke, we go way back. We grows, man.
That's what I'm talking about. That's my dog. Hey, look, if you hear shit start to pop off, come in here blasting, all right?
I'm down, dog. Hey, baby, want company?
Motherfuckers! CJ, get in here! Oh, there you go. Yo, some cover they blasting like fools in this motherfucker!
I'll get down, dude.
CJ! Big smoke. You make big mistakes. Watch yourself, CJ. I think they pissed. CJ, take the right and cover my ass. Keep it up, baby. That's my dog making y'all pay.
with me, CJ. We out of here, baby.
Where'd he go? Where'd he go?
Stick real close, Carl. Keep your head down. The air's thick as shit in here.
Smoke, you and your friends are dead men.
Motherfucker, back me up. That's my homie, CJ. Homie, you ice cold, baby. Time to return the favor, baby. Get on.
They after us on the bike, Smoke.
Waste any motherfucker that follows us.
Shit, man, they coming for us in the truck.
Don't tell me about it. Take it off the road. Pop it. Damn, look at all this traffic. Get out of the way. I'm coming through.
We got bikes on our six. Smash it, Smoke.
Hold on tight, baby.
Ah, Smoke, no! Oh, they hit a bus.
I'll never diss public transportation again. Damn, roadblock.
Oh, Smoke, these cats is organized. It's something you ain't telling me, man.
Look, Carl, all I know is they real pissed with us right now. Hold on, though, I got an idea.
Smoke, what you thinking? Flood control is a dead end, man.
The hell with that. We had to lose those cars. Don't worry about that. I know a way out up past Grove Street.
The old sewer tunnel. Oh, man.
Watch out back.
Smoke is more bikes.
Well, come on, homage. That's beautiful. That's right.
Oh, shit. Now the truck's found us again.
Man, stop being so negative. Focus on the good news.
Such as?
We ain't dead and your trigger finger still works, fool. I think the gearbox is screwed up on this thing. I can't get no speed.
Yeah, who negative now, bitch?
Point taken. I'll keep my mouth shut from now on. Watch out back. Oh, shit.
Oh, man, the car's found a ramp.
Don't tell me about it, shoot. Hold on.
Get us up that ramp, Smoke.
I'm on it, baby.
We still got bikes on us, man.
Man, quit bitching and shoot as many of them assholes as you can. Who's total dead truck?
Go around him, man.
Screw that. We taking the scenic route.
Come on.
Right,
That was pretty good.
That's the old sewer up ahead. Shoot out the gate. Nice one, DJ. Here we go.
Man, I used to hate this tunnel when we was kids.
Hey, we can reminisce later. We still got company.
Don't these guys ever give up? We lost them, Smoke. Man, we better split up.
I'll take it another block and dump it. Man, that was some crazy shit back there.
Yeah, for sure. Listen, we
Sure.
can't hang around here. I'll see you later, homie.
Much love, baby.
Oh, take it. Go take this car. They're nice cars.
Dude, give me that.
These are nice cars.
This last
Ouch. Oh, it can't be modded?
That was freaking close! Hey, don't molest me.
Oh no, my car's gonna overheat.
Man, I hate those blotto dickheads.
It's on, y'all.
You ever seen the show Law?
Nah, just a company making any action game. Gonna pop your face in.
Another day in America.
That's my guys. Do this shit. Oh. Ah, you so kind.
Motherfucker!
They need to put some chairs out on the street.
Rolling a cigarette there real quick.
Say that the gods of the nations are demons. They started as angelic creatures, but then they went bad and became demons. And that's the basic understanding of what demons are today. In church history, a demon has been understood to be a bad angel. Now, there are a couple of items of historical note that should be borne in mind, because the term demon hadn't always been used that way. Originally, the term daimon is a Greek term, and it doesn't mean what Christians mean. A daimon was basically a spirit that was between one of the high Olympian gods and humans. And so Greeks had this kind of multi-layered concept. Some Greek of the heavenly hierarchy. Some Greeks would talk about there being a supreme god, like a demiurgos, a craftsman that made the world, and then there were the lesser Olympian gods, and then there were the demons, daimons, and then there were humans. And daimons, I'll pronounce it that way to keep it straight. Daimons were creatures that humans could potentially have interactions with and maybe even gain control over. And that term got borrowed by early Jews and Christians, and used for this additional category. But there's also another category that we find in a good bit of Jewish literature down through the Second Temple period, which is when Jesus lived. The early Jewish sources we have interpret the Genesis 6 narrative, where the sons of God come down and marry the daughters of men, as the early sources all interpret that to mean angelic creatures came down and had relations with human women and gave birth to a group of people called the Nephilim. You'll sometimes hear people say Nephilim means fallen ones, but it doesn't. It's actually an Aramaic term that means giants. And these giants then had a war, and they died. And in the Second Temple period, the common understanding of what a demon was a ghost, a harmful ghost of one of these Nephilim. So there's a different understanding at this point. And so if you bear in mind that in this period, the term daimon sometimes referred to this Greek concept, and sometimes it referred to this ghost concept, it indicates that in this very early period of Christian history, there's some additional flexibility in how the term demon might be applied, but eventually it settled out to mean any spiritual creature that's not a human, in other words, an angel, any spiritual creature that is not a human and is harmful.
All right. That's why we asked Jimmy these questions. You get those comprehensive answers. More on the demons to come, and then we'll get around to your questions about the demons. Jimmy Akin, our guest. It's Catholic Answers Live, right back after this. Welcome back. Catholic Answers Live. Jimmy Akin, our guest. Jimmy Akin's Mysterious World gets a new episode each Friday. Guess what? That means today. What dropped this morning, Jimmy, on Jimmy Akin's Mysterious World?
Guns and ammo.
Well, today is the beginning of September, and so it's a Patrons Questions episode. And this is different than our usual Patrons Questions, because this summer I had a trip to Italy, a pilgrimage that I led. And a couple of evenings during the pilgrimage, we let the pilgrims ask questions. So these were questions specifically from the pilgrims who were able to join us for the trip, and many of them had to do with things that they experienced on the trip, including a lot of questions about a particular church in Rome that we visited. This is a Capuchin church, and locally it's often called the Bone Church. And the reason for that is you go into it and there's a series of chambers that the walls of which are covered with artwork, and the rooms are just filled with artwork made from human bones. It's also sometimes called an ossuary, which just means a place of bones, and They used the bones of the monks who lived in this monastery from the 1500s to the late 1800s to make all of this artwork as a memento mori. Memento mori means reminder of death. And so it's very startling and arresting because you're walking along and, oh, here is a chandelier made out of human bones and things like that. And so it's very dramatic, but that's the point. Is to remind you of the reality of death. And, you know, you're going to end up here, not literally, but you're going to end up in the realm of the dead, just like these people did. And so if you want to have a good afterlife, you want to live in a way that's going to ensure you a good afterlife. And so it's not just a set of works of art, it's an object lesson to teach the spiritual lesson of preparing for death. And needless to say, after walking through those chambers and seeing all this bone art, the pilgrims had a lot of questions about that. And in today's episode, we also show you pictures in the video version of the podcast of what all that looked like.
Hey, you better watch it.
Damn, that bitch is bad. Oh, yeah.
What's up, y'all?
What's up,
What's up, CJ? Turn that TV off right quick. Listen up, fellas. Like we were saying, no more bakes in the streets.
Finally.
Peep this. We're going to unite the families once more because the ball has been pumping our guys full of base for too long while we argue amongst ourselves. So all the family sets are going to meet down at the Jefferson Motel. I say it's time we went down there and made it official. Keep that shit off our streets. I vote I'm our representative on this one.
That's right.
Hey, it's all good. If Sweet think he can handle it, I'm down with it, man.
All right, let's roll, homies.
Let's do this.
Yeah, let's go, man.
It better pick up around here soon.
Say, CJ, you gonna crash the car again?
Fuck you, Ryder.
Ryder, give CJ a break, man. He's practically turned the Grove around by himself.
Man, I was just telling a joke on the little nigga.
Everything you do is a joke, Ryder.
That ain't true.
Ryder, just chill the fuck out, man.
Remember, we're reuniting the family, so no bullshit. Stay cool.
You know me, Sweet. Cool as a Shaolin monk.
Especially you, Ryder.
What you mean? I resent your implication and shit.
Sweet's just saying you're...
Okay, it's strictly 1 rep per set. You guys gonna have to wait here.
We'll be there just in case, bruh.
Thanks, homie, but I'm down with these boys.
I don't like this, man. Look at all them other family hoods. They used to be Grove Streets.
Relax. We straight, they straight. How about you, Smoke?
Hey, I'm feeling a little exposed, but I'm good.
This is the Los Santos Police Department. Everybody stay where you are.
Oh, shit!
All units, rock and roll!
Man, what you doing?
Go, get back in, man. We out of here, baby.
I ain't leaving my brother. I ain't no buster.
Man, it's every motherfucker for himself.
Hey, watch it, homie.
Where the OGs at? I gotta get my brother Sweet.
They were meeting in the back of the motel someplace.
Okay. He's gonna roll from one side of the door to the other. Door down.
Go, go, go! Families! Cops coming in from behind!
Getting too.
Out. No, totally my fault. That's all me. Dang it. Wasn't even planned. Hardly.
What can I say? I'm a bad man.
Get back here, you asshole!
This automobile's powered to. He's sucking on a piece of swine.
Oh, ouch.
Building up Grove Street business.
You don't have to walk now, sucker.
I ain't giving up on this.
What are you doing?
Issue.
He's trying to kill me!
Shit!
This ain't funny no more, CJ.
Dude, look. There.
Yourself, whatever the cost.
You hard yet?
Ammunition. You've made the smartest decision of your life. You've come to a gun shop. We hope
you kick some ass.
feel real manly and patriotic.
Take
Don't
it,
forget to check
hold
out
it,
our selection of
love it.
landmines. They're the gift that keeps on giving, year after year. Mother-in-law being a bitch? Ammunition has the solution. Why not check out our selection of flamethrowers?
Perfect for killing, pure and simple.
Special on hand grenades. And if you're too fat and lazy to throw them, check out our grenade launchers. Pop it in, pull the trigger, and boom! You've blown a hole in something. Sign up today for
Works
your
well in a
ammunition
crowded
from the
area.
Sniper Guard. Buy 10 guns and your next one is on us. Thanks for visiting.
See you again soon.
Ammunition, we don't need a background check. A wad of American currency.
That shit is whack, homeboy.
Take a break, take a break, take a break.
And your partner in mystery, Dom Bettinelli, was there.
Yep.
He'll be on this episode. Yeah.
He was there. He's the one who's reading the questions to me.
Check it out, mysterious.fm, or check out Jimmy Akin's YouTube channel, growing each week more popular. Already, Jimmy Akin's Mysterious World, one of the most popular documentary podcasts around. Get it wherever you get your podcasts. All right, let's see if we can find some way. The topic this hour and next hour as well is demons, and we decided we wanted, and I'm really glad we did, given what we just learned in that first segment about demons. I don't like to let the show go too long without finding a way to make it about me. So I want to know what I want to know what they can do to me. So what do these persons, these personalities, actually have the power to do in our daily lives?
Stop it, man! You're so far past the
it's kind
intersection.
of a general question. It doesn't have a single answer because demons are like humans and that they can do a bunch of stuff. You know, it's like if you said, "Well, what can other humans do in our daily lives?"
Yeah.
Well, they can do a lot of things. It depends on what they choose to do. And demons can actually do more in our daily lives than other humans can because they're more powerful than humans. They're fallen angels, and so angels are more powerful than humans, so demons are also more powerful than humans. They could do bunches of stuff, including stuff that I'm sure humans would even have trouble imagining, maybe even stuff we can't imagine. But we can say, well, what do they commonly do? And that's an easier question to answer. And basically, they are spirits that have closed themselves to love, which means they've closed themselves to God, who is love, and they've closed themselves to the love of God's creatures, so they don't love us. And basically, to the extent that they interact with us, they want to cause us problems. And in particular, they want to lead us away from God and to close ourselves to God's love the way they have. So they're going to try to, for example, get us to worship them rather than to worship God. That's one of the things that the gods of the nations did. They wanted people to worship them. That's not so much a temptation today, not here in the West, because polytheism has fallen out of favor, so that's not a big temptation for most Westerners. But another temptation that can equally lead one away from God is going to the opposite extreme of not believing in any gods and being either a practical or an explicit atheist. And so they can try to tempt people down that path to lure them away from God. They can also try to tempt them into a variety of other sins, whether it's sins of the flesh or sins of the mind, like pride and stuff like that, or hatred. But basically, they're going to try to tempt people into one or another kind of sin. Now, in saying that, and so at least some of the temptations that people face in their lives are likely caused by demonic influence. But there are a couple of notes I need to make about that. The first one is just because you have a temptation doesn't mean that it's a demon causing it. Classically, Christian theology has divided sources of temptation into three kinds. They're summarized by the words the world, the flesh, and the devil. The world means the example given by others. So like if you see someone else indulging in a sin and you think, oh, well, that's not so bad, maybe I can do that too, that would be an example of the world or someone else's example tempting you. The flesh is our own inbuilt desires. So it doesn't matter, it doesn't have to specifically be a sexual temptation. It could be something else, but it basically, we are born as a result of original sin. We're born with inbuilt desires that are disordered. And when we give in to one of those disordered desires, that's an example of temptation being acted upon that comes from the flesh. The third, the devil, is the catch-all category for demonic influence. So demons can have an influence in tempting people towards sin as part of their ordinary activity, but that's only one of three sources. And we know we have lots of interactions with the world and the example of others. We know we have lots of interactions with our own disordered desires. So if you just automatically assume, oh, I've got this temptation, it must be coming from the devil or one of his minions, you're giving the devil too much credit. He's not that powerful. He's not that big of an influence in our lives if you're excluding the role of the world of the flesh. And so that's the first note I would have about considering what they can do in our daily lives. The second note is, since there's no way to distinguish for sure which, if all demons are doing is low-level, ordinary temptation stuff, there's no real way to be certain of where that temptation is coming from. It could be the world or the flesh or the devil. And because there's no real way to discern for sure which one it's coming from, it's not worth worrying about. Instead, when you're facing a temptation, the thing to do is don't worry about where the temptation comes from. Don't get paranoid about this is a demon or something, but just trust God and ignore the temptation wherever it comes from, and pray and do what you need to avoid temptation. But don't get hung up about is this being caused by a demon or am I under demonic attack? Because unless the demons are doing something extraordinary that becomes detectable, there's no way to figure that out, and it's thus not worth worrying about. It's just going to cause you needless worry and anxiety and wasting time and energy on a question that can't be answered. So just trust God and forget about it.
That is very helpful advice. You know what? Demons is one of the most interesting topics for some reason. We got movies about demons. We got all kinds of websites that get into this topic. But that's one of the nice things about having Jimmy here, to take what has been revealed to us as Christians, what can reason do with that revelation, and what can we actually know about the demons. So we'll continue with more of that right after this on Catholic Answers Live. Welcome back. Catholic Answers Live. I'm not sure about mixing the groovy music with the demons. It's good. It's a little relief. From the demonic theme of. We're talking about demons with Jimmy Aiken today on Catholic Answers Live. Shortly, about 25 minutes from now or so, we'll be taking your calls. So if you have questions about demons, look, Jimmy will talk to anybody. So if you're not a Christian, don't worry about it. We'd be happy to talk with you. If you are a Christian, if you're a Catholic, whatever, you're welcome to call with your questions about demons. And I've got a few more, and then we'll open the lines up for you. 888-318-7884, 888-318-7884. So a demon. You gave us the basic Christian idea that a demon is an angel that went bad.
It's sell by date.
Yeah, that's right. It's sour. It's a sour angel. So what's the power ratio like? Like, does a demon, are they basically just the equals of the angels, or how does that work?
Well, that would seem to be the case. It could be different if, they've lost power or gained power when they went bad, but we don't have anything in Revelation that tells us that happened. So the presumption, it's like a human. Humans don't, if you got a bad human versus a good human, it doesn't mean the bad human is weaker or stronger than the good human. So in the same way, if you got a bad angel, the assumption would be that it's just as powerful as it was before it went bad. It's just using its powers for evil now. Now, there are different kinds of angels, and the high-ranking ones are going to be more powerful than the little lower ones. It's kind of ironic when you look in the Old Testament, there are a number of different terms for heavenly creatures. They're not all called angels in the beginning. Kind of at the top, you have the sons of God. They're the ones who are like members of God's court, and they're clearly high-ranking. And either at that level or just below it is the enemy of God, the devil, Ha-Satan. or Satan in Hebrew. And he functions, as we see in Job, as the heavenly court's prosecutor. So he's right up there. He's playing a key role in the heavenly court. He might not be a son of God, but he's really high up. Then there's God's army that shows up periodically, and it's got a commander who's obviously higher ranking. We meet the commander, for example, in the book of Joshua. There are also throne attendants that God has. In Isaiah, he sees the seraphim guarding God's throne, and he describes part of what they look like. They've got 6 wings and so forth. He doesn't focus on what their bodies are like, but actually we pretty much know what the bodies of the seraphim looked like. Now, they don't really have bodies because they're heavenly creatures. They don't have bodies. But the way they were depicted or imagined, conceptualized by ancient Hebrews was with serpentine bodies or snake-like bodies with wings. This is a known motif in ancient Near Eastern art. These figures appear elsewhere. For example, they appear in Egyptian art, where their function is to guard sacred space against unauthorized people approaching it. And that seems to be part of what they're doing in Isaiah. They're around God's throne, and they're preventing unauthorized people from approaching God's throne. Also, part of how we know, now these figures, when we see them in Egyptian art, they're often called uraeuses. That's the name for this snake or winged snake figure. But in Hebrew, they're not called uraeuses, they're called seraphim. An individual being a seraph. And that's also the word for a serpent. So even if you don't speak Hebrew, it's not obvious, but the word seraphs or seraphim tells you this is a snake-like creature. And you might wonder, what are snake-like creatures doing around God? I mean, in the Christian imagination, snakes are typically bad. But what they also are is frightening and dangerous. So, you know, God around his throne, if you think about it from an ancient perspective, he's not going to have little weak, sissified, you know, throne guardians. He's going to have big, terrifying throne guardians. You're not authorized, you're not getting in here. And so that can explain why God would have snake-like creatures, at least ones that humans imagine as snake-like creatures around his throne. Then Ezekiel sees the cherubim. And this is another kind of creature that we know from ancient Near Eastern artwork. These appear in Mesopotamian art, and they're often depicted or sometimes depicted as bulls with wings and human heads. And they're described sometimes in the Old Testament as creatures that God would ride. The Psalm, kind of like men ride a horse. It says that God in the Psalms rides on the cherubim. But that's not quite the way Isaiah perceives them. He perceives them as having 4 different faces, the face of a man, the face of an ox, the face of a lion, and the face of an eagle. And he sees them as having 4 wings, and they also are throne attendants. One of the things we find in ancient Near Eastern art is that kings often had what are called chariot thrones. It's like a throne, but it's got wheels on it, so it's a mobile throne. You could make it roll. And that's what is depicted in Ezekiel. He sees God sitting on a chariot throne, and so God's throne has these wheels, and it's being upheld by the cherubim. And that's something we also see in ancient Near Eastern art, is servants who are throne attendants holding up the king in his throne, which has wheels on it. So that's essentially what Ezekiel is seeing in his vision. It's not a UFO. It's God's it's God's chariot throne and his throne attendants. Now, you'll notice I mentioned all of these different kinds of heavenly creatures. I mentioned the sons of God, I mentioned the Satan, I mentioned the cherubim, I mentioned the seraphim. I haven't yet mentioned angels. Well, they're down at the bottom. I mentioned the army and its commander, but I haven't mentioned angels. They're down at the bottom. And what the word angel means, malachim in Hebrew, it means the same thing as it does, as angelos does in Greek. It means messenger. And so the malachim, the angels, are the messengers. They're like at the bottom of the heavenly court, and they run and deliver messages for God. And so since we humans are even lower than they are, it's normally the messengers that we have contact with. And so what happened is, over the course of time, we started using the term messenger to refer not just to the little lower down angels that we most commonly have contact with, but to all of them. And so that's how the term angel, it broadened its scope from just being the lowest members of the heavenly court to being everything in the heavenly court. Because if normally when we're dealing with a member of the heavenly court, we're normally dealing with an angel, well, then you can just anything from the heavenly court.
It's like short.
Yeah. But you'll notice these different levels, they all would be presumed to have different levels of power. And so if you have a member of one of these choirs of angels, as they're commonly called, who's gone bad, they would presumably have the same power that they did before. And that seems to be supported by the fact that we see them having what you could call fair fights or equal matches. If you look in Daniel, at one point Daniel says a prayer to God, and 3 weeks later the angel Gabriel shows up. And Gabriel says, hey, I would have been here early 3 weeks ago. I heard your prayer, but the prince of Persia resisted me. And and the thing that finally let me get through was Michael intervened. And right now, Michael, he's basically got the Prince of Persia in a headlock, and he's holding the Prince of Persia. He's got him in this holding action to let me get through the lines to give you the interpretation of this vision. And then when I'm done, I'm going to go back, and Michael and I are going to whale the tar out of the Prince of Persia. So what this shows is that the Prince of Persia had enough power to stymie Gabriel by himself. And Michael has enough power to stymie the Prince of Persia by himself, but not enough to completely destroy him. And it's going to take the combined forces of Michael and Gabriel to cause the Prince of Persia to fall. Mm-hmm. So that would suggest we're dealing with fairly equal levels of power between good angels and bad angels. And so I would say that demons and angels are equal in power, remembering the fact that they have different power levels within themselves. Some are weaker and some are stronger.
All right, that'll take us to the break. Let's do the break, and we'll come right back and get more on the demons with Jimmy Akin, and then we'll take your calls. 888-31-TRUTH is the number.
Yeah, gotta take a break.
Welcome back to Catholic Answers Live. Jimmy Akin, our guest. And for this Friday, we're talking about the demons and trying to get the real story about demons, because there is... there's just lots of all kinds of things that it'd be very hard to discern which are true and which are false if you just devoted yourself to finding out what's on the internet, for example, about demons. So we're asking Jimmy. And let me ask you this, Jimmy, about demons. Mm-hmm. If you could tell me, I feel like I know what tempts me as a human being, and it's very often bodily. As a matter of fact, pizza is one of the primary things. I don't think pizza could tempt a demon. Mm-hmm. And so it's hard to conceptualize why a demon would go bad. Why would an angel go bad, thus becoming a demon?
Yeah, well, so the church does not have a teaching on this. There are certain opinions or proposals that get floated, but the church has not signed off on any of them. So it's also, if you think, well, hey, they're a lot smarter than us, why would they go bad? Why would they commit sin? Because that's not going to lead to good consequences for them. But then you think about it, even Solomon, he was the wisest of Israel's kings, and he had significant sins. So simply being smart doesn't protect you from doing bad. And as it's sometimes been said, sin makes you stupid. It leads you to do stupid things. And that's definitely the case with the demons. But in terms of what specifically it was, there are different proposals. The earliest proposal that addresses the question of why at least some angelic creatures fell is the one we find in Genesis 6 and in a lot of later Jewish literature down through the period in which Jesus lived, which was some of them got tempted by women. And this is very clearly the reason why some of them fell in some Jewish literature. Now, I would say, because angels don't have bodies, that I would think there's, to the extent this in any way reflects something that might have happened in history, there's got to be more to it than that.
You're using video games.
I would say they probably fell, and then they.
I see. Yeah.
It manifested in some way that involved women. But this is, just trying to be honest about what the ancient evidence would indicate before I try to interpret it in a modern light. From a Christian perspective, this is not the first time that angelic entities have been bad. Earlier than that, we've got the snake in the Garden of Eden. And, talking snakes are not literal creatures, and ancient people knew that as well as we do. And there is evidence from quite early on that it was understood, certainly by the Second Temple period, that the snake in Eden either was Satan or Satan was behind the serpent. And so that would indicate a prior fall. And that's how the question has typically been framed in a Christian context of why did not demons in general fall, but why did the devil fall and take these other demons with him? And there are different proposals here. One of them, probably one of the more general ones, says, well, it was pride on his part. That's based in part on a later passage in Isaiah, where it's either Isaiah or Ezekiel, I believe it's Isaiah, where you have a taunt song that is sung against the king of Babylon that talks like, oh, I'm going to be like the day star, which is Lucifer. That's what Lucifer is, the Latin name for the planet Venus, which was the morning star and the evening star. And you have the king of Babylon being really highfalutin. It's like, I am going to ascend to heaven. I am going to be like the morning star and the evening star. But then according to the taunt song, no, you're going to be cast down to the ground and you're going to be like food for worms. And some people have looked at this and read it and said, oh, it's talking about the devil. Except it's not. It's talking about the actual king of Babylon, just like the text says. So I don't think you can really, even though pride is an element in this taunt song, the literal sense of this text does not apply it to the devil. It applies it to the king of Babylon. So I would say it's more speculative about the role pride played here, although I don't think it's a bad guess. There are also other suggestions that are more specific. One of them that I find rather interesting is found in the book of the life of Adam and Eve. This is a book from around the turn of the era. It's either a little bit before Christianity or a little bit after the beginning of Christianity. It's unclear whether the original version of the life of Adam and Eve was Jewish or Christian. But it's a really fascinating book. I did a two-parter on Mysterious World about it, and it basically tells the story of what happened with Adam and Eve after they got kicked out of the garden. And it's really kind of a moving story, because if you grew up in paradise, you were created in paradise and you lived in paradise, and then you screwed up and now you're kicked out of paradise. It's like, hell, what would the first thing you do be? You just caught doing something really horrible. Your first instinct would be to
apologize, maybe.
Yeah, and so that's exactly what Adam and Eve do. They try to apologize to God. Maybe He'll let us back in.
Yeah.
And then it's worse on Eve, because she was the one who was more consciously tempted. She feels absolutely horrible. And then when it's clear they're not getting back into the garden, now they got to figure out, how are we going to survive? How are we going to eat? They've never
hunted before. They've never done anything like that. And so it's a very moving story, but as part of it, we get flashbacks to the role of the serpent and what his perspective was on all this. And so they end up talking about how the serpent fell. And in the life of Adam and Eve, what it says is, okay, in the beginning, after God made the earth, he made Adam, who as the image of God. And so what do you do in the ancient world, Psychelet, with the image of a god?
You worship it?
You worship it, right. And so that's what the angels were supposed to do with man. And so you've got Michael, the archangel, saying, everyone do obeisance to man, honor man as the image of God. And the devil, the serpent, is thinking, hey, I was here before him. I don't owe him any honor. He's after me. And that's what caused the devil to fall. It was the demand to honor man as the image of God. And so that's the theory articulated in the life of Adam and Eve. But there are other theories, too. Some will say, well, God revealed that Jesus was going to be born as a human, and the devil couldn't stomach that. It was like, humans are these puny little fleshy wormy creatures, and how could the Son of God possibly become incarnate as one of them? And how could I possibly honor him as the Son of God if he's become this little fleshy wormy creature? And that's what caused the devil to sin. But because Revelation does not give us the answer, I'm comfortable just saying sin makes you stupid, and beyond that, it's speculation. We don't really know. There are some interesting speculations, but I wouldn't bet the farm on any of them.
Well, I'll turn it back to myself then. We're talking demons with Jimmy Akin, and now that we've learned about these demons, I would like an answer to this. How do I avoid them and stay out of their evil clutches?
Okay, well, one of the few things we know with good confidence about demons is they don't like holiness. This is, in fact, one of the diagnostic criteria. If you read the 1614 rite of exorcism and the 1998 rite of exorcism, one of the characteristics is it's not sufficient because, bad humans also don't like holiness. But if demons display a notable aversion to holiness, like they don't want to look at a picture, they don't want to say the name Jesus, they don't want to look at a picture of the Virgin Mary, they don't want holy water or holy oil touching them, all of those things will set demons off. They really don't like it. And so if you know that demons don't like holiness, stay holy. Make sure you're in a state of grace. Say prayers. Go to church regularly. Take communion. Wear religious artifacts that are holy, that have been blessed even. So basically, just maintain a life of holiness and don't worry about it beyond that. We shouldn't get paranoid about demons being under every rock because they're not. And they would, in fact, love us to worry about them being under every rock, because that wastes our time and makes us fearful. But just live a life of holiness and don't worry about it beyond that. Now, that's not a guarantee that demons are never going to try to mess with you. I view demons as kind of like bears. They're opportunistic predators. If you're out in the woods, you don't have to invite the bears. If they smell food on you, they'll come. On the other hand, no one has to sick a bear on you. It's just if you run across one in the woods and you're in a vulnerable state, they may take advantage of that. Demons, it's the same way. So, just go about your life, but don't be in a vulnerable state. Maintain a life of holiness and, be confident in God and trust in Him, and don't worry about it beyond that. And if something unfortunate happens with a demon, then there are additional steps that can be taken. But fundamentally, just be holy, love God, and enjoy life.
I do want to, before we go, ask, and I've only left you about 3 minutes on this one, but you hear these three words: demonic possession, oppression, and obsession. This is I've heard these words in reference to what the demons, different ways demons can bother us. Is there value to these words? Do they point to real things, and what are they?
Yeah, they're used to classify, and there's also another term, which is vexation. They're used to classify different extraordinary forms of demonic manifestation. So this is not the ordinary stuff like I'm a little tempted to have too much pizza or whatever. These are very unusual, and consequently, they're not very common. But one of them is oppression, which is manifest demonic activity in which the demon is targeting things in a person's life, but not the person himself. Like maybe the demon is trying to ruin your finances or something. Then there's vexation, which is manifest demonic activity where the demon is attacking a person's body, like he's causing epilepsy or deafness. Then there's obsession, which is where there's manifest demonic activity where the demon is attacking the person's mind, like causing mental illness or extraordinary temptations. And then there's possession, which is manifest demonic activity, which at least at times results in the demon seizing control of the person and acting as an alternate personality.
All right, and on that last one, possession. That's one that they never make movies about vexation. I don't think, anyways.
It shows up occasionally in movies. Oh, does it? It's just usually not the main subject.
So, are there any cases of possession that you have looked at that you thought that's a quite convincing case?
There are some more than others, and I do plan on covering specific cases of possession in the future on Mysterious World. But part of the problem in this area is client-patient confidentiality.
Oh, yeah.
Just like it can harm a person's reputation if you disclose their medical history, it can harm a person's reputation if you disclose their spiritual possession history.
Yeah.
And so the church is very careful about what it discloses, and there's not a lot of data available, which makes it hard to investigate cases from a critical point of view.
Oh.
We tend to just have to rely, for the most part, on the analyses of the people who were there at the time.
I see.
But it's not as easy to do investigations from a distance. But that's not going to stop me from making the attempt.
I hadn't thought about that. There is a reputational thing, like you were possessed. Oh, and thank you for the job application, but we've chosen a different candidate. You could be like, well, it got better. I'll tell you what, we're going to continue to talk about demons. If you have questions about demons from any angle, whether you are Christian or not, you are welcome to call. Jimmy's happy to talk with you.
We'd like to take a moment to thank our patrons who make this show possible, including Father Dean M., Anthony H., Arthur, Connor B., and Ian P. Their generous donations at sqpn.com/give make it possible for us to continue Jimmy Akin's Mysterious World and all the shows at StarQuest. More than 90% of our financial support comes from individual donors like you, and you can join them by visiting sqpn.com/give. Jimmy Akin's Mysterious World is also brought to you by DeliverContacts.com, offering top brand contact lenses at always low prices with free delivery. Visit DeliverContacts.com. And by Father Robert Spitzer and the Magis Center's new Critical Catholic Cosmology program. Join a community of adults and educators seeking to grapple with the truth claims of science, philosophy, and the Bible in a classroom environment, with special appearances by Father Spitzer. Ground your faith in evidence with a critical method that integrates heart and mind. Earn 6 graduate credits over 2 semesters at 1/3 of the cost of most graduate programs. Online or in person in the Boston area on Tuesdays beginning October 7th. Go to magiscenter.com/institute. MAGISCENTER.com/institute, or search Critical Catholic Cosmology to register today.
Welcome back to Catholic Answers Live. I'm Cy Kellett. Your host, Jimmy Akin, is our guest. We had a lovely extended conversation, if you can use that word, for a discussion about demons. the first hour with Jimmy. And then at the end of the second hour, I said, go ahead and dial if you want to ask a question about demons. And I've rarely seen the lines just in sequence just light up one after another. But there is currently there's one line open. So if you've got a question about a demon or demons in general, you are welcome to call 888-318-7884. Again, I will emphasize, you don't have to be Christian to call. You don't have to be a believer of any kind, or you can be a practicing Catholic, whatever, anybody, the whole range. You're welcome to call if you've got a question about what the Catholics believe or understand about demons. All right, every line full now. So let's let people ask Jimmy their questions about. Oh, you know what? I'll tell you what. I do want to ask you something, Jimmy, and then I'll go to him. Mm-hmm. I forgot to ask you what's on the Jimmy Akin podcast this week. What dropped on Monday?
Well, this last Monday, it was on the tetramorph. Oh, I'm sure you're familiar with that.
Finally, I've been like, what? When is he going to get to the tetramorph?
Yeah.
I don't know. I can't remember what tetra is. Is that more than a quadramorph? Oh, okay, if tetramorph is a quadramorph, then all right.
Yeah.
What is it?
Okay, well, recall how last hour I mentioned that the cherubim that Ezekiel saw had 4 faces, that of a man, that of an ox, that of a lion, and that of an eagle. Well, that imagery has been used in Christian circles as a symbol for the gospel, for the four gospels. And there have been different ways of trying to estimate which animal symbol should be associated with which gospel. There is not just one way of doing this. There have actually been a bunch. And so this symbolism of the 4 faces of the cherubim being applied to the 4 gospels is known in Christian art as the tetramorph. Tetra meaning 4 and morphe meaning form or shape. So it's the 4 shapes or the 4 forms that are used to symbolize the Gospels. And it goes back, this usage goes back to the late 2nd century, but it's taken different forms or shapes down through Christian history. Different people have matched up these images to the Gospels in different ways. So that's what I talk about in this episode.
I don't know that anybody else is doing that kind of work. Who else is talking about the tetramorph on their Catholic podcast? Check it out on the Jimmy Akin.
Decepticons.
Oh, tetramorph against the Decepticons. I'm going with tetramorph myself in that battle.
Good bad.
Andrew's in Minnesota. Andrew, thank you so much. Thank you for starting us off. Go ahead with your question about demons for Jimmy Akin.
Hi, thanks so much for taking my call.
Sure.
My question is, I was curious to what degree, if any, you're familiar with the work of Dr. Michael S. Heiser, rest him, and the mnemonic nature of the Nephilim, and also connections to Mount Hermon and the gates of Hades and allusions to that in the Gospel of Matthew.
So I'm very familiar with Mike Heiser's work. I knew Mike when he was alive. Unfortunately, he passed on fairly recently. But I knew him. I've interviewed him. I've read multiple books of his. And I think he's performed a valuable service for people by retrieving some literature from the Second Temple period that had largely been forgotten in Christian circles. Like, even though some people knew about the Book of Enoch and the Book of Jubilees, it was something that only people who were pretty arcane specialists really had an awareness of. And Mike did a really good job and a service to the Christian community by calling attention to this material as background information that can be helpful in reading not only Genesis but also the New Testament. So I think he did a lot of good work. I think his work is incomplete, though, not just because of his unfortunate passing, but also because I think there was an aspect of the work that needs to be done that he didn't really address. And that was how to integrate these ancient views with what we know about the world now. So Mike would typically say, okay, so here's what the evidence indicates this text meant but then he wouldn't say, and how should we understand that in light of what we know now? Like today we have a clearer awareness, like back when Genesis was written, they didn't have a clear awareness of the fact that angels don't really have physical bodies. That's a discovery that happened later in Christian history. And so it wouldn't have even been a question for the author of Genesis. Well, how could a demon mate? How could an angel mate with a human? Because they didn't view demons as non-corporeal the way we do. And so Mike did a good job in just saying, here's what this text means. But I think there's then a reception work of how do we receive and understand that to the extent we should, in terms of what we know today, in terms of later doctrinal development. And I think Mike didn't really do a lot of work in that area. And so I would say he did a good service in what he did, but I think his work is incomplete in that respect.
Thank you.
Yeah, and personally, as to his work on Reversing Herman, I believe is the title of the book.
Yep.
Do you see any merit to the connections that he draws between the account as laid out in First Enoch or Enoch 1 and also in the Gospel of Matthew, for instance? Do you see there being...
There may be some intertextuality. There may be some textual references there, but I don't really have an opinion on that. And I think that the material described in these texts, like First Enoch, if it is to be given any credence at all, it's written from such a literary perspective that it needs to be heavily modified in order for there to be a modern reception of it. So this is one of the aspects of Mike's work that I think is unfortunate, in that he really doesn't get into this. But I think that if we were to have a modern reception of some of this material, we need to treat it as very, very non-literal. And Mike doesn't tend to explore that question.
Andrew, thank you very much. We're talking demons with Jimmy Akin. All the lines full at the moment. Terry's in Kansas, listening on 98.9 FM. Terry, thank you for the call. Go ahead with your question for Jimmy.
Hi, Jimmy and Sai. Thank you for taking my call. My question is how a Blessed Saint Benedict's medal has exorcist attributes.
Okay, well, Saint Benedict is someone that people have turned to for help regarding demons. You can't do a major exorcism, through Saint Benedict or his medal, but people have turned to Saint Benedict asking for help with demons, because wrestling with demons on the spiritual level was something Saint Benedict did during his own lifetime. And so it's been natural for people to say, hey, please help me with struggles I'm having in this area. And in the course of time, it became a custom for people to use a medal of Saint Benedict, and there's even a blessing that's been authorized for not only members of the Benedictine community to give this medal, but for other priests as well, basically asking God to bless the medal and use it as an instrument in helping people avoid problems with demons. And so it's not that the medal itself has such properties. It's not like there's a magic that the medal has. This is all based on prayer. We're praying to God and asking for Saint Benedict's intercession to use the medal as a help in dealing with demons. And that's the sense in which there is efficacy here. It's not that the medal has this as one of its own properties. It's that we've asked God and Saint Benedict to help us out through the medal, and they can do that.
Terry, that brings us right to the break. I hope that was a helpful answer to you. We'll be right back with more on demons with Jimmy Akin. At the moment, one line open. Jimmy Aiken, our guest this hour. As first hour, we had an extensive conversation about demons, who they are, what they do, how you can avoid them, all of that. This hour, we're open to your questions on demons, whether you are very knowledgeable about demons or not at all, whether you are fully committed Christian or not religious at all. If you've got a question about demons, we'd love it if you'd call and ask. 888-318-7884. Going to upstate New York now, where Bryson is waiting. Bryson, thank you for waiting. Go ahead with your question.
Thank you. Thanks for taking my call.
Sure.
I appreciate your work, Jimmy. So my question was, the idea that, okay, the gods of the nations are demons, and there's an idea proposed by later church fathers that the pagan gods of various places, like the Roman pagan gods or of various places, are demons. But it struck me that everything that was regarded as a god in every sort of polytheistic culture around the world is a demon. Might be that seems a little too simplistic on the face of it. So the question is, when looking at
I need to find out what year it is.
some sort of polytheistic or pagan religion from various places in the world, wherever it might be, looking at an entity or so-called god, what's a good way to determine, okay, this might actually be a demon, or it might be something else, or it might be nothing at all? Does that make sense?
Yeah, so I guess the first thing I'd say is we need to think through the conceptual space here in terms of what are the possibilities. Now, Deuteronomy provides an ancient Israelite perspective on the gods of the nations that they knew about. And it says they're demons. But there are other possibilities too. And we see, as an illustration of those, that emerged later in God's progressive revelation. So just because they have one conception at one period in God's revelation, that doesn't mean additional options won't open up later in God's revelation. And we actually see that starting to happen in the thought of St. Paul. In his thought, in 1 Corinthians, he does have the idea that foreign gods are demons, but he then parallels that with the statement that that an idol is also nothing, and and that alludes to the option that you mentioned of maybe some of these gods are nothing at all. Maybe they're just imaginary. And then there's also a possibility of maybe someone could actually be worshiping God, but under another name, and or have some idea of God, of the true God, even though it's under another name. And St. Paul seems to allude to that in some of his statements, like in Acts 17, where he quotes from pagan sources and draws genuine spiritual insights out of them, like we are all his children and stuff. And he's quoting a pagan text that actually in its original context is referring to Zeus. So this would suggest that maybe the pagan author has a genuine spiritual insight about the relationship of divinity and humanity, and the pagan author is using the term Zeus to express that, Zeus being the highest of the Greek gods. And Paul is still picking up on this insight and applying it in a Christian sense. So we've sort of got three possibilities about what these pagan deities are. They could be the true God under another name. They could be nothing at all, or they could be demons. And I think it's too simplistic to just assume any one of those and say that explains everything. We have a much greater awareness of the diversity of human religious thought than the ancient Israelites did. They thought there were basically 70 people groups in the world, and they didn't even have a detailed knowledge of all of the beliefs of those 70 groups. Today we have much more awareness of just how big humanity is and how great the diversity of belief is. And I agree with you. I find it hard to believe that for every single spirit that somebody somewhere has worshipped, that there is always a specific demon that corresponds to what these people believed, and in a one-to-one fashion, so I think that there's a mix of phenomena going on here, consistent with the development of these different trajectories that we see in St. Paul's thought. My solution to your basic question, though, of how can we determine what's what in a particular case, is I would say that we can't for sure. But if I'm open to all of the possibilities in a particular case. Let's say I'm dealing with someone who is an Odinist and they worship Odin. Well, okay. Odin might be totally imaginary, and no one in the spiritual world is picking up on the prayers that this Odinist is saying. But it also could be that some demon for the moment is impersonating Odin, and maybe at another time another demon will impersonate Odin. I wouldn't assume it's always the same demon all the way through history, or that there's any demon at any specific point. So I don't think there's a way to make a determination of is a demon actually active here, apart from looking at the data that is generated in a particular case. If an Odinist, for example, starts doing preternatural things that cannot be explained by psychology and natural causes, then I would be more inclined towards there's a demon who's answering his prayers to Odin if genuinely paranormal stuff is happening. On the other hand, if nothing paranormal is happening, I'd be more inclined to either there's not a demon here, or the demon isn't doing anything extraordinary, nothing more than common temptation. So I don't think there's a way to find a one-size-fits-all solution here. I think we have to be open to the different possibilities and not judge them prematurely, but in an evidence-based way.
Jonathan, thank you. Lots of folks on the line, so I'm going to keep going. We're talking demons today with Jimmy Akin. If you have a demon question, there's just one line open right now, 888-318-7884. Going up to my town, just up the coast now. Jonathan in Oceanside. Welcome, Jonathan. Go ahead with your question.
I know. That's smart.
Hello. Thank you for taking my call. My question is concerning earlier in the first hour, Jimmy mentions that there are three sources of temptation, the world, the flesh, and the devil. My question is, can the devil or demons in general use the other two sources, the world and the flesh, to tempt us? Or are they separate and there's no overlap between the three sources?
Well, let's have Cy Kellett answer this question for us. So, Cy Kellett, the question is, can the three sources of temptation overlap in some ways? Now, earlier you mentioned a desire of the flesh or inbuilt disordered temptation for pizza, right?
Yes, I would
But
say
we
so.
also talked about another category of temptation, which is the world or the example of others. Can you imagine situations where the example of others might combine with your own disordered desire for pizza in a way that would strengthen the desire for pizza and make it more likely you're going to give in?
Add a demon to that, and I think you've got a picture of my life right there, Jimmy.
Let's keep the demon out of it for a minute,
all right.
just to make the principles clear.
Yeah.
Could the example of others lead you to eat too much pizza based on your own desire?
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, just think of that's the purpose of advertising, right? So yeah, these categories can combine. And so in addition to the example of others tempt inside, eat more pizza, like through advertising, or Ansai's own inbuilt desire to eat too much pizza. A demon could also be there whispering in his ear, hey, doesn't that pizza look good? Why don't you have some more? So, of course, these different categories can combine. But as I said before, since there's no way to pull them apart, the thing to do is not really and rigorously identify what's causing what. The thing to do is just trust God, ignore the temptation, and get on about your business.
Okay, Jonathan?
Hey, dog, what's up?
No, thank you. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Jonathan. Thanks very much. That's why I can't watch the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, though. Just too much temptation involved there. Yeah, too much. Kate's in Bloomington, Indiana, listening on 89.9 FM. Glad to have you, Kate. Go ahead with your question.
Thank you for having me.
Sure.
My question is, could my son's father, who is now in his 50s, still be affected by what he did when he was in high school, which was he joined a satanic cult? He rebelled after getting kicked out of his Baptist school that he had been in since kindergarten. I think he was a junior. And when I met him in 2006, he told me the story, and I just kind of blew it off and didn't really realize how serious it was. And I'm a cradle Catholic, and basically, long story short, when our son was about 3, he just started acting really, really strange. And about a day after I blessed our home with blessed chalk over the doorway, he walked out on us. And there are many paranormal things that happened after that.
Hey, what's going on, man?
And I still pray for him, and our son's a teenager now.
Totally fake.
And I just can't move on because I feel like he needs help, and there's no one there for him but me. Like he needs an exorcism or something.
Jimmy?
And I just don't know what to do.
Okay.
Monday and Thursday, Dad.
Well,
Monday and Thursday?
this is a sort of complex question, and so we're about to hit the hard break, and I don't want to give short shrift to this question. So, Kate, I'm going to defer the answer until the other side of the break so that I can do it justice.
Can you hang on through the break?
Yes.
Okay.
Set up, maybe?
Very good.
The new guy got hired.
Welcome back to Capital Live. That's not the devil's music.
So I assume.
I don't know if there is devil's music. People have been calling since about Wagner. People have been saying that's the devil's music.
Earlier.
Even before Wagner.
The same person.
I'm not sure that I believe in that, but we're talking about devils or demons today. If you've got demon questions, as I said, 2 lines open, 888-318-7884. However, we want to get to a quite serious question from Kate in Bloomington, Indiana, asking about her son's father, who got involved in satanic stuff when he was young and seems to still be affected by it in his 50s. Jimmy?
Okay, so the basic answer to the question of could there be some ongoing influence from what he did when he was in high school is, well, sure. All kinds of things are possible. I mean, if you got a young guy in high school with a pink carnation in a pickup truck and he gets drunk and goes out driving, he may flip the truck and injure himself in a way that's going to haunt him for the rest of his life. So, injuries and things that were received in high school can still have effects later in life. And, so obviously, if he did join a satanic cult, that could have affected him either by causing some kind of damage to him or by attracting the attention of demons to him in a way that they're still taking an interest in him and still messing with him, or both. My question, though, since this is over a period of 30 years later, would be what evidence is there that that's the case? Because just because something's possible doesn't mean it's likely. And there are lots of people who have, minor flirtations with Satanism when they're young, and then they get over it and they grow up, and it doesn't have any lingering effects like that. So in trying to evaluate a particular case, what the church does and what paranormal investigators do is they make a list of all of the possible explanations for the observed phenomena, and then they go down the list and see if there is a natural cause for these phenomena, and only if there is no natural cause is one warranted in proposing that there is a paranormal cause. So in the case of your former husband, or perhaps current legal husband, you said that he started acting weird at a certain point a number of years ago. And, well, that could be because of demons, but it could also be because he was developing a kind of mental illness. You said he left at a certain point, and, well, that could be because of demons, or it could be because there were other stresses in the marriage at the time that were purely natural. So in terms of early things like that, I don't know the situation, but I'm not hearing anything that demands the demonic as an interpretation. And so without something that demands the demonic as an interpretation, I'm going to do what the church would do, which is fall back on normal, natural causes for these things. Also, if, your husband had, for example, at some point after his involvement with this group, if he had become a practicing Christian and, repented of his involvement in this group, that's something that would be evidence against ongoing demonic activity. The thing that you said that I found most interesting was that after he left, there have been ongoing multiple paranormal events. Okay, if that's the case, then it's possible that they could be produced by demons. It's also possible that if they're genuinely paranormal, they're being produced by something other than demons, or it could be that they're not actually paranormal. They just appear to be, but they have purely natural causes. This is something that paranormal investigators learn, is that when you're investigating, let's say someone thinks they've got a ghost in their house, even when the evidence is that they have a ghost in their house, there's probably other stuff that is being misinterpreted as ghostly activity that's purely normal. Because once people have the idea that I've got a ghost in my house, they start interpreting everything through that lens. So every bump in the night becomes, oh, there's that ghost again, when really it's just a bubble in your water pipes or something. And the same thing can happen in this kind of situation, where one becomes concerned that my husband or former husband is being affected by demons, and then everything that happens surrounding him gets analyzed through the lens of, oh, here's something strange that happened, I bet that's demons again, when in fact it may not be. And this is part of why the church requires exorcists to carefully look into a case and say, are these phenomena something that is better explained by medical conditions or by psychological conditions? Because normal phenomena, like medical problems and psychological problems, are more common than paranormal phenomena like demons. So if normal causes can explain the reported phenomena, then they should be understood in that light. It's only if the reported phenomena go beyond what nature could itself result in that we're warranted in proposing a demon as the explanation, among other paranormal causes like angels or ghosts or other things. So, I just don't know enough about the case to offer an opinion one way or the other about what's going on here. But I would say, just like the church would not automatically jump to the demon explanation, that there are other possible explanations, and we shouldn't just jump to the demon explanation either. In terms of what could be going on with him, well, it's like I said, it's possible that there's residual damage or interest from when he was in a satanic cult, but it's also possible there aren't, that there isn't, that the problems he may be experiencing now are due to other factors, genetics, environment, free will, all those kind of things. If you're concerned for him, which you obviously are, and that's a praiseworthy thing, there are things you can do. Obviously, you can continue to pray for him. Hypothetically, you could talk to him about these things that are going on, whatever they may be. You could also see if he'd be interested in getting some counseling, perhaps from a Catholic priest, perhaps even from an exorcist. He might be open to that. If an exorcist were to determine that there is likely demonic activity here, then the exorcist could perform an exorcism, or he could even perform an exorcism from a distance, because exorcists don't have to be physically present with the person to perform an exorcism. So hypothetically, he could be exorcised from a distance. There are also things less than exorcism that a person can do if it's less clear that a demon is involved and that a full exorcism is warranted. Like there are what are known as deliverance prayers that you and others could say for him to help him out, even if this isn't a full-blown case of possession. So there are things you can do, and I want to encourage you in that regard, but I also want to just caution you that we shouldn't be quick to assume it's a demon when it might in fact be something else.
And Kate, I will leave it there because there are quite a few still on the line ready to talk about demons. I hope that was helpful to you.
Demonic
exorcist. We go. AJ is in Oklahoma. Go ahead with your question, AJ, for Jimmy Aiken.
Straight line when you're told to.
Hi.
No, I'm Joseph.
Call.
Not be able to
I just wondered why Padre Pio was, I guess, to be oppressed by the devil since he was a saint, received the Eucharist every day, prayed 15 rosary a day.
Well, so I assume that what you're referring to is my comments earlier about how demons don't like the holy. And that's true, they don't. That's in fact one of the diagnostic criteria the church uses to diagnose demonic possession, is the fact that the alternate personality has a notable aversion to the holy. So it's a reasonable question, why would demons go after someone who is notably holy? Well, it might not be the kind of thing that they would normally do because they don't like holiness. But just like some people enjoy a challenge, some demons would seem to enjoy a challenge. It's like the bigger they are, the harder they fall. So if you can take down someone who is really noticeably holy, you're going to get more points and more street cred from your fellow demons. They're going to respect you more. And so I would imagine that just like there are humans who climb mountains precisely because climbing the mountain is hard, that there are demons who would want to conquer Mount Padre Pio, if at all possible, just precisely because it's hard, and they know it's going to be harder on them because of how holy he is. But I would suspect there are at least a few demons who are attracted by saying, hey, let's see if we can corrupt this potential future saint. And that's the kind of challenge that stimulates them and that they get off on. So that would be my explanation. It's not what most demons do. It's not the way they normally act. But the history of some saints, not all, but some saints report in things like demonic attacks would suggest that at least some demons are interested in that, either because they enjoy the challenge or because they want to ruin the good that the saint could otherwise do if they weren't attacking him, or things like that.
What do you think, AJ?
Thank you.
No, very good. Well, thank you. You brought us right to the break. We'll come back with more questions on demons for Jimmy Aiken on Catholic Answers Live. Jimmy Aiken, our guest. Demons, our topic. Lots and lots of calls, but I'll tell you what, we've got a couple lines open now, so if you want to get in, if you've got a question about demons, whatever your own beliefs are, if you've got a question about what Catholics believe about demons, you're welcome to call 888-318-7884. We love talking to you. It doesn't really, you don't say, I don't think they want to talk to me. They want to talk to Catholics. No, anybody. You can call 888-318-7884. If you've got a demon question, pick up that phone. Karen is in Portland, Oregon. listening on the great modern day Catholic radio. Glad to have you here, Karen. Go ahead with your question.
My question is with regards to Jimmy's comment about the fact that Genesis 6 ought to be taken in a largely symbolic way.
You saw AM?
I was wondering if, Jimmy, you were familiar with the work of Timothy
Well, I
Alvarino,
thought that
and I
as
was
soon as
hoping
you
you
said
would
that,
be,
I was
because I
like,
wanted to ask
wait,
her
Monday?
about it.
No.
What specifically did you want to ask my opinion about?
And try speaking right into the phone. We're having trouble hearing you. So as clear as you can, right into the phone.
Usually.
Yeah.
Here, let me take you
So
off.
it's usually like a 10 to 3 or 10 to
Yeah,
4.
that's
Is
just
this
advice
better?
for the audience. Never use speakerphone when you're talking to a radio show. It always causes
So
problems.
sorry.
It's all right.
Yeah, okay.
Oh, we got you nice and clear now. Go ahead.
Okay, great. Okay, so Timothy Alvarino holds that the Genesis 6 is literal and that it's all explained in the book of Enoch, and that the angels mentioned there are not angels as Aquinas describes them, that they are something more like a hybrid, and that when they copulated with the sons or daughters of men, they produced the giants. And he said there's he's an archaeologist, and he's gone all over the world and uncovered tons of evidence apparently that confirms this. And
I know, Joseph. I
was
know.
just wondering if you were familiar
I'm a
with his
parent
work
too,
and
though,
what
and
your
I would tell
opinion
him,
of
like,
it
hey,
was.
bro, you need to make as much
Okay,
money.
so I am.
I mean, as long as
I
it's
know
not
the
killing
name,
him,
Timothy
that's what's
Alvarino.
tough.
His
And their
website
kids, and I know they don't
advertises him as an
understand, but
author,
like,
researcher, and explorer.
now, but
But
that might
as I
not,
can
it might
tell,
be
he does
bad.
not
He
claim
may
to
not want to
have
do it
any
at
kind of
all. He
degree in
may be,
archaeology.
and
So
there's
I don't
always
think
been
he's
an
an actual
argument against child
archaeologist.
actors.
Now, there
So,
is a relationship between
but
Genesis
that's like
6
even the
and the Book of
dad,
Enoch.
his dad
The Book of Enoch
failed.
was
He
written
likes being around
in the
his
Second Temple
ex-wife.
period, so well after the Book of Genesis was written, and it is based on material that is reflected in the Book of Genesis. There are also several other books that were written in this period that are also related to what's in Genesis 6.
But they made a financial decision, and whether
At least
that's right
based
or
on
wrong.
what
But as
you've
a
said,
parent, I would say, hey, you need
if he
to.
wants to claim that
You know what I mean?
this
This isn't going to be a
event
permanent
was
thing.
literal,
No
and there
television
literally
show,
were
like
angelic beings
PewDiePie.
who
I would do
mated
that,
with
but we're going
humans
to
and
write it
produced
out.
giants, I would want to say,
But
well, what's your evidence for that? I mean, I know what the text
and he's
say,
already famous. Like
but
he'll never be the same.
where are the bones?
He'll
What
never know what it was like
DNA
to be a
can we
normal
look
kid.
at?
And that's
Where,
the argument against
if you want to
child
say this
stars,
was all a physical
basically.
event,
Like it's
I want to
almost
know what
borderline.
evidence you have that this
It's
was
almost
all a physical
borderline
event,
human
and I'm not familiar with
experimentation,
any good
dude.
evidence to
Famous
that
is
point.
famous, but then
So
that was
I would be
nobility
very
back in the day.
skeptical
We still have
of
nobles,
what
dude. They're
Timothy
famous when they're
Alvarino
born.
claims, if that's what
And
he
that's fucking
actually claims.
that's abnormal. But then even here,
There is a big
popular kids
risk
in every
of
town.
people who are operating in a kind of fringe area
they are.
like this, who are not really careful scholars, which is what
Yeah,
I'm
he had
trying to
quite the
be,
blow up,
but
dude.
who are
Dude, he did.
sensationalistic
There's a couple I
and
noticed. You can
are
tell when they
trying
start
to
getting money.
propose and explore
It's
ideas
not just it's
precisely because
confidence.
they sound
It's
dramatic,
success.
and they try to inflate the evidence for things when really there isn't strong
Yeah, because in
evidence
the
here.
early ones, he's almost
So
like,
I
I
think the
don't know what
golden
I
mean
would have left my
is
kids
one,
alone with
meaning
him.
the
And
balanced
not bad,
approach
but he's looking pretty
is
neat,
one
you know.
that is
And whether it's
open-minded
because
and
he's an
evidence-based,
immigrant
that
or,
neither is totally dismissive
you know,
nor
yeah.
overly credulous, overly easy
Like
to
the dude from
believe
Baby Steps.
sensationalistic claims. And so I would say that based on
No,
my
he's
reading
got
of
an
the
accent,
evidence,
dude.
I think that
Now, yeah, I mean, you can, but
people
like to
like
hold on
this
to an
have some
accent,
genuine
you
insights
have to
into
be
what
in
the
like
text
Little
means
Italy
that
or
actually previous and better scholars
No,
have
that's happening
formulated
in El
that they're now
Paso, but
copying.
that's because there's so many Spanish
But
speakers.
I am unaware of any good evidence that would support the idea of this
And that
being a
little
literal
Mexican
physical
twang
event,
is
though
almost
I'm
becoming an
open-minded.
American accent.
If they could produce
That little Chicano twang,
such
yeah.
evidence, I'm open to hearing it. I just haven't seen any good evidence of that.
Karen, thank you very much for the call and for the question. On we go, trying to get everybody on with Jimmy before the end of the hour. Alyssa is in Central Texas listening on Armor of God Radio. We're so happy to have you. Alyssa, go ahead with your question.
Hi, thanks. I have a sort of a speculative question here. So I know Elon Musk, one of his many pet projects, he wants to upload human consciousness to a digital state or electronic state and thereby make it eternal. He's already done this with like cat brains, but it's still super unlikely.
Alyssa, have you heard Elon Musk say that exactly? Or are you just aware of him doing a Neuralink interface to enable, for example, disabled people to express themselves through it?
That's the practical application of the end goal he has. I think his end goal is very unlikely. But my question is more fun.
Alyssa, Alyssa, hang on. So I can't vouch for that. So I'm going to assume that what you're saying is true, or that I know there are people who do want to upload human consciousness to a computer system. I don't know that Elon Musk is one of them, but there are such people. So let's assume that one such person, whether it's Elon Musk or someone else, tries to do that and claims that they have. I would agree with you that it's very unlikely that they would be able to do that. In fact, I would say it's impossible for them to do that. But let's suppose they did. What's your question?
So supposing this technology did happen, could such a uploaded consciousness be afflicted by the demonic the way embodied humans are? And how would a priest go about exorcising such a person when they don't really have a traditional body?
Okay, well, in regard to the first question, now, like I said, I think this is impossible, but supposing it were not impossible, if human consciousness was uploaded to a computer system, would demons still have the ability to affect it? Well, we see evidence in Scripture that both angels and demons are able to affect physical systems. And so the computer that the consciousness was operating on is a physical system, so both angels and demons would be able to affect it. So having a body is not necessary for demons to be able to affect you. So yeah, they could continue to affect it. How would an exorcist be able to help this person, assuming that they were being afflicted by this demon? Well, you don't need a body in order to do an exorcism. Like I mentioned earlier, you can do exorcisms at a distance. Now, there are certain things you can't do at a distance, like you can't anoint the possessed person with holy oil. You can't, sprinkle holy water on them. You can't offer them a cross to hold or impose a cross on their forehead or something like that. But you can say all the prayers. You can say the prayers asking God to help the person. You can say the prayers commanding the demon to get out in the name of Jesus. You can do all that. And so the exorcist would simply use the parts of the rite that can be done with respect to the demon-afflicted person in the computer. And in fact, he might even be able to go further. Like, even if he can't impose a cross on the person's forehead, he could take the cross and impose it on the computer and see if that has an effect. So God's power is unlimited, and therefore there are still ways for God to help someone, even if they're counterfactually in a computer system and being attacked by a demon. God can help you no matter where you are.
Again, we're getting near the end, so I want to get everybody on. Alyssa, thank you very much for the call. Anna is in Pennsylvania. Anna, if you can be a bit quick with your question, it would help us out a great deal.
Yes, hi, thank you.
Sure.
So I am actually Protestant, but I take the teachings of the Catholic Church under serious advisement, especially on certain matters. And I was wondering if the Church has a definite teaching one way or the other on the existence or non-existence of ghosts. And I ask that because I do believe in ghosts, but I'm also very skeptical as to what exactly ghosts are. And I assume that some of the time, or maybe even all of the time, there are demons posing as ghosts. So can you tell us what the Church has to say about that, if anything?
Yeah, so this isn't strictly a matter of church. Well, it depends on how you define ghost. Strictly speaking, the church teaches that ghosts exist because ghost is just another word for spirit. And the church does teach that spirits exist. That's why, that the Holy Spirit is sometimes referred to as the Holy Ghost. And he obviously exists. He's one of the three persons of the Trinity. Angels and demons are spirits, so they can be called ghosts. Humans have spirits that survive our deaths, so we have ghosts. So strictly speaking, the church does teach the existence of spirits or ghosts. Most people, when they use the term ghost, though, are referring to a human spirit that is manifest in after their bodily death. And that is, in fact, the traditional Catholic understanding of what ghosts are, that they are human spirits manifesting after the person's bodily death, very often while they're in the process of purification on their way to heaven. And such ghosts frequently are trying to, for example, tie up bits of business they have left over from life, or they ask for prayers to help them on their journey to heaven or things like that. And the way later theology would express that is these are souls from purgatory who are still being purified on their way to heaven, and they're asking for help from the living. And that was the Catholic understanding of ghosts, not the same as church teaching, but the common Catholic opinion on what ghosts were down to the time of the Reformation and since then. It was in the Protestant community that this idea of we need to suspect demons as impersonating ghosts really got started. Demons can impersonate ghosts. They can even impersonate angels. But it's always a question of what's the evidence that we have for this. If a ghost is showing up and saying, hey, will you please pray for me? That doesn't sound like a demon. That sounds like, someone who is oriented towards God and wants your help reaching God. As opposed to if they show up and a spirit says, hey, why don't you worship me? Well, I'd say that's a demon. So I would say we need to think carefully about what the evidence we have is in a particular case, and we shouldn't just assume that a spirit that's appearing is a demon. In fact, spirit appearances after someone's death is extraordinarily common. In parapsychology, these are known as after-death communications, or ADCs, and between 40 and 50% of the population reports having their dead loved ones appear to them at least once during their lives. And it's hard to think that all of that is due to demons rather than people genuinely being allowed an experience of their departed loved ones by God. If you're interested for more information on this, I've got some episodes of Mysterious World where I deal with this. In particular, you might want to check out, you can go to youtube.com/Jimmy Akin and search on ghosts, but also in particular, look up episodes. Let me see if I can get the episode numbers quickly enough. Episodes 306 and 307 on after-death communications. And I hope that helps.
I do too, Anna. Thank you very much. We got to almost everybody, but the calls kept coming. I guess people are very interested in the topic of demons. Certainly interested in talking with you, Jimmy. Thanks for doing the 2 hours with us.
My pleasure.
And that's our Ask Me Anything About Demons. And now we have your mysterious feedback on our recent episode from Feeling the Future. And the first feedback comes from Chaz, who sends in this voicemail.
Hey, Jimmy and Dom. My name is Chaz, and while I'm not originally from here, I'm currently living in Fayetteville, Arkansas. I just got done listening to the Feeling the Future episode, and it got me thinking. I've heard the explanation on deja vu, that it's a phenomenon that occurs when part of your brain registers something that's happening before another part of your brain registers. And so it feels like a memory of something that's already happened before when it just happened. But the episode got me thinking, is it possible that deja vu could be reinterpreted as
now you ready?
Or precognition? What are your thoughts on that? Thanks again.
Well, there are a bunch of proposed explanations for deja vu, and my own suspicion is that it may be an all of the above phenomenon. It may be multifactorial. There may be many different things that produce the feeling of deja vu. In addition to the mismatch in timing between when different parts of the brain process something, it's also possible that it could reflect cryptomnesia, or having a hidden memory of something, like maybe you previously were exposed to a similar situation and you're just not remembering it, or maybe you dreamed about a similar situation and you're just not remembering it. That would just be one additional possible explanation for it, and there are quite a number of them. I do think that, given the evidence we have from experiments like the Feel in the Future experiments, that ordinary people have precognition functioning on a low level all the time, that does open up a serious possibility that deja vu in some cases may be actually a precognitive event, where you're sensing what will happen and interpreting that as, wait, this feels familiar in a way it shouldn't. So I think that is a real possibility.
Our next feedback comes from Nick H. It seems odd that Psi researchers would use the tools of psychology to prove Psi's legitimacy. Psychology hasn't yielded any landmark discoveries, for example, structure of DNA, or created transformative products, like the nonstick frying pan, to use a popular example. In this regard, both Psi and psychology seem like religions without miracles. Moreover, psychology has a long history of recommending body horror procedures, for example, lobotomies, electroshock therapy, so-called gender-affirming care, on sick people. ADHD and depression are treated with medications to correct brain chemistry imbalances, even though patient brain chemistry is not measured. Mental health care has never been more mainstream, yet America is reported to be experiencing a nationwide mental health crisis. Psychology as a discipline has carried out its reckless programs without sufficient prospect of success or evidence of positive results. As such, psychology seems to cause more harm than good. If Psi wants to be taken seriously, it would do better to dissociate from such a disreputable field.
Well, I certainly understand where you're coming from, and psychology does have a really spotty history, both in terms of practices that have been used in the past. You mentioned electroshock and things like that, and lobotomies and so forth. There also have been problems in psychology on the research front, and there is what's known in science right now as the replication crisis, that where it turns out that a lot of experiments, including some very famous ones, when you run them again, the results can't be replicated, and that applies to psychology in a particular way, although it also affects some other fields. What I can say is that the term parapsychology arose early on, at the same time psychology was developing as a field of discipline. The term parapsychology didn't arise too much after that, so the name parapsychology is almost as old as the name psychology. And there's some logic there in that both fields deal with the psyche, the mind or soul. Psyche is just the Greek word for mind or soul.
Are you done yet, baby?
And they both deal with the mind or soul, so it's logical for them to both have psyche, or a derivative, psycho, in their name. So psychology and parapsychology, it makes some sense. However, there is overlap with a lot of other fields. In fact, when I teach parapsychology, and actually I'm about to teach Introduction to Parapsychology again this October and November, so you can go to rhineedu.org if you're interested in taking that class. But when I teach it, I point out that it does have intersections with a lot of other fields. And so you could also think of it in some cases as paraphysics, paraanthropology, pararchaeology, and so forth. So it does have a lot of connections with other fields. It's not strictly related to psychology in particular. In terms of does psychology do more harm than good, That's something I would be formally agnostic on, despite the problems that psychology has, and every science has problems, especially when it's first starting out. I mean, look at the history of medicine. Just conventional medicine. I mean, they used to have the heroic theory of medicine, which involved bloodletting, and they used to do trepanation, or drilling holes in your head to cure headaches, and they had a bunch of medical practices that would not pass muster today because they were unsafe and dangerous. But that doesn't mean that we should just dismiss medicine as doing more harm than good. I think that's an empirical question. I think it is one that could be answered, but it would require a lot of research, and I'm not comfortable just sitting in an armchair saying that, because I know that psychology does do good for people. And so I don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater. I'd rather sort the wheat from the chaff and figure out which things psychology is doing well and encourage more of that, and then figure out which things it's not doing so well and try to improve those.
All right. Our next feedback comes from Dan Rydell, who writes, frankly, I'm not into the side topic for the most part, but I appreciate Jimmy's thoroughness and rational storytelling, which is why I listen regularly, even regarding topics that I typically find less engaging. And I will admit I wasn't interested in this episode at the start. As always, the story was well told and the data seemed to be undeniable. Then my consideration went in a new direction, considering psi, the human mind, and behavior. Abraham Maslow long ago wrote on the topic of self-actualization. If we can precognate the data as is defined in these experiments, does that have a direct correlation on our interpretation of ourselves, and then being capable of directing our future toward either more positive or more negative results based on our thoughts? Simply stated, based on our thoughts, are we precognating the future we desire? Please don't misunderstand me to be implying that self-actualization allows us to be a deity unto ourselves, but that it allows us to work within God's plan for our lives by directing the paths we go.
Yeah, Dan, I think I understand what you're saying, and we do have evidence that, as the Feel in the Future episode showed, that ordinary people are using precognition to precognize, the likely future and then make adjustments. Like, do I really want to see that image that I might see or not? And, there's an understandable evolutionary reason for that. At least it makes sense in terms of evolutionary biology. If an organism could detect what's likely to happen if nothing changes, then it could use that information to improve its living conditions and improve its chances of surviving and reproducing. So I think that can be understood and articulated in terms of navigating our environment to find a future that we find desirable without making us deities. It's just like we use our other senses, like vision and hearing and smell, to navigate our environment and foresee dangers and detect opportunities and navigate our way through the world in a way that's hopefully successful for us. So I would say if we precognize the future, that would just be one more tool in that toolkit.
Okay. And now it's time to hear from you. What are your theories about demons and how the church handles them? Let us know by visiting sqpn.com or the Jimmy Akin's Mysterious World Facebook page, sending us an email to feedback@mysterious.fm, sending a tweet to @mys_world, visiting the StarQuest Discord community at sqpn.com/discord, or by calling our mysterious feedback line at 619-738-4515. That's 619-738-4515.
And I want to say a special word of thanks to Oasis Studio 7 for the video and animation work they did on this episode. You can check out their work by going to my YouTube channel, youtube.com/Jimmy Akin. And while you're there, be sure and hit the bell notification, subscribe, and share the podcast, because I've got lots of other videos on all kinds of different subjects that I hope you and your friends would enjoy.
All right. So, Jimmy, what's our next episode going to be about?
Next week, we're going to be revisiting a mystery that we looked at in the early days of the podcast, and we're going to be giving you an update with some new information that I didn't have when we originally tackled it. So next time, we're going to be going back to 1947 and looking at the Kenneth Arnold UFO sighting that kicked off the modern UFO era.
Basically? Is that what they're trying to do?
Folks, be sure to, as Jimmy said, share the podcast with your friends and write a review wherever you can get write reviews of podcasts or shows, whether it's Apple Podcasts, YouTube, or Spotify. Help us grow this community and reach more listeners. Be sure to get your very own Mysterious World t-shirt, mug, or more in our merchandise shop at sqpn.com/merch. You'll find links to Jimmy's resources from our discussion on our show notes at mysterious.fm/384. And remember, to help us continue to produce the podcast, please visit sqpn.com/give.
And they were designed to help quit smoking.
Yeah, I felt like I was, whatever, like I could have did.
Light some pipe, man.
I mean, because you pretty much did. But
Pretty much did, yeah.
Why did they? Those are real popular with the office people.
Oh,
you
because...
you can hide it in your lip and nobody can tell.
Yeah, because you got to be a robot, dude.
Exactly.
Robots don't smoke.
It's more efficient. Those smoke more
vices. No, they don't. You can't have vices. It makes you a bad employee, bro. No.
Look at her. She's my kind of thing.
This better be better than the last time.
Check the booty on that.
Man, see you later, dog. Have some fun with that.